пам'ятаю нашу горнім полі, я полкового знамена, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою всі скидання, воно вібрало у собі.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 333 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and also all the news we've been able to find outside of the country. And we'll of course be starting there, outside of Ukraine. And moving on back into Germany. Germany has been one of the most important members as far as foreign support is concerned at the moment, and it's been led into a lot of controversy considering that the Leopard 2s that were originally supposed to be sent at some point to Ukraine have never arrived, and now, due to the waffling, they are now saying that they will only be sent if the United States also sends tanks as well, which has been causing, of course, a great deal of controversy, and has also not been incredibly popular with the German public either, as we can see that even all the way down in Bavaria at the, I guess you could say at the headquarters of the political party that's currently running things in Germany in a way, they are going and protesting directly at their headquarters in Bavaria about the lack of leopards in Ukraine. And so, here's the video. Also, thank you, Duncan. And that's the end of the clip, but you can see right there that, of course, throughout all of Germany, not just in Berlin, but in many major cities across the entirety of the country, protests still continue about the lack of leopards being sent to Ukraine, and hopefully here in the future we will see that those leopards are sent into the country and used greatly by the Ukrainians. Meanwhile, at the same time, the few leopards that are being sent at the moment are being sent largely by the Polish, and the Ukrainians have declared that that their forces will be transported to Poland to be trained on these leopard tanks and then sent back into Ukraine with the leopards in hand. And we can see an article right here speaking about that specific thing. Specifically, Oleksiy Reznikov, who is the defense minister of Ukraine, or the Ukrainian minister of defense, said that they will be doing this very thing. And so it's good to know that the Polish, of course, will be providing some pretty high-end training. Of course, the Polish have been familiarized over the past few decades with Western doctrine and Western vehicles, and so they will most likely be able to get the Ukrainian armored forces up to a really high standard before they're sent back into Ukraine with the Leopards. We're assuming that this same training, I guess you could say, ordeal will also be occurring with the British, although we haven't gotten exact details on how Ukrainian tank forces will be trained on the Challenger 2s. All we know for the moment is that 14 Challenger 2s will be sent, and beyond that we don't have any exact details as to when they will be sent, how they will be sent, or where these forces will be trained on these tanks. But speaking of the British, they're not just sending tanks, they're also sending something I never expected. They're sending minesweepers. You heard me right, they're actually going to try and build up a Ukrainian navy. They're handing over two of their older minesweepers right here, the HMS Ramsey and the HMS Blythe, and one has been renamed the Chernihiv, right here, the one in the top picture has been renamed Chernihiv, as we can see in the picture right there at the very back. It says in Cyrillic, Chernihiv, or Chernihiv, and then at the bottom we can see Cherkasy. So both of these minesweepers are of the exact same class, and eventually they will be handed over to the Ukrainians. Will it be during this current war? Most likely not. It's very difficult to get Ukrainian naval forces or support of naval forces to Ukraine, considering they have to pass through the Black Sea and then to a Ukrainian port, and that's fairly difficult considering that the Black Sea fleet at any given moment could leave their ports and end up intercepting these minesweepers and destroying them before they ever reach Ukraine. So for now, they're going to be held by the British, but after the war, the Ukrainians will be growing a pretty sizable navy with some fairly decent Western ships. Also, another thing, some of y'all are probably thinking, that's kind of weird that it's a minesweeper. You would think that it would be something a little bit larger, a little bit better, but as far as the Ukrainians are concerned, they don't really have, even back before the Russians annexed Crimea, a lot to invest in navally. They are pretty much a regional force as far as their navy is concerned in the Black Sea, and really only care about the coastal waters of Ukraine and not much further than that. So it's not really necessary for the Ukrainians to have a massive fleet of destroyers and frigates that could travel around the world, because they also lack the overseas bases to send those to, so that way there's a way for them to be refueled and resupplied beyond their own shores. So these are actually about the best that the Ukrainians would buy for themselves, and it's really neat to know that the British will be handing over two of these ships, because I don't think I ever heard about any of this in any of the support packages, but currently they'll be staying, I believe, at the port of Clyde in Scotland. And so, once again, fairly interesting to see. We're now going to be moving on from that and into Poland again, moving our way back into Ukraine, where we saw the Germans, while of course being the subject of controversy about their Leopard tanks, are not stopping any support in any other direction, because right now, as we speak, German convoys are still traveling through Poland and delivering some fairly interesting stuff, like this Fuchs right here. A very interesting little vehicle that a lot of people haven't heard about. Let me pull it up, the Fuchs APC, right here, and y'all are probably going to notice something. It looks a lot like a VAB. It is pretty much a VAB. It's just a German variant of one. It's, of course, in the typical NATO tricolor SARC that the Germans use a decent amount. And beyond that, it's just a wheeled armored personnel carrier that can transport troops. It appears that the one being carried here in this picture may be a little bit different than a Fuchs, because this has a 3-wheel layout. This one has a 4-wheel layout. So let's scroll through.
You can tell it has that duck heritage in its bloodline.
Yeah, it has that, like, Central Europe, well, not Central, Western European duck face thing going on, the duck syndrome. I don't think that is a Fuchs, come to think of it. Let me look through these. The M117 is not that. It's not the Yak. It's definitely not this thing. It's not that either. That's also Finnish. A VAB. It's not a VAB because a VAB's a 4-wheel. It's not that. It's not that. What the hell is that? What is this thing? Because it's a 4-wheeled Fuchs-looking armored personnel carrier. So what in the world could that be? I have no clue. I think it says with Fuchs and other tanks. But that's not a Fuchs. Someone just said it's a Boxer. So let's pull that up. Boxer APC. Yeah, y'all are right. It is a box. Oh my god, wow.
Oh wow, that's nice. That's very tall.
That thing's got a Puma turret on it. And also, it is 4-wheeled. So I think this is the one we're looking for. And if we go back and look at the top of this one has a smaller turret, however. It does not have this Puma-looking turret that's on top of this one. So let's see if there are any different variants of it that match up with that. This one looks to be, at least at the top of it, what we're looking at on the back of that truck. We're trying to figure out what kind of firepower this thing most likely has, but I gotta tell y'all, I hate the new version of, whatchamacallit, Wikipedia. I do not like how it's laid out. I love the old way, and I think we should try and bring back old Wikipedia. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I think this is the one right here, because it's a very small turret, as you can see. It looks like it's no larger than a 50 caliber. So it appears to be this variant, the FLW-200 remote weapon station being mounted on top of the Fuchs. Regardless, a really interesting, up-to-date, modern vehicle, and hopefully the Ukrainians will be able to use this thing incredibly well on the front lines of Ukraine. Now, oh my, wow.
Oh
Dang,
my goodness.
That thing is Brited out right there. I think our British viewers are going to be a huge fan of this one. And do the British have any of these? Let's see, mechanized infantry vehicle requirements. So it doesn't look like they bought any, according to the picture. It just looks like they're taking a gander at them. And wait a minute. Oh, man, now that would be crazy. A Fuchs APC with that Rheinmetall anti-aircraft gun mounted on top of it. Now, that would be insane.
That would be. That's some firepower right there.
Oh yeah, that thing would be shredding apart drones all over the place and infantry. That thing would be top of the line if every single one of them came equipped with a turret like that, but we know they're fairly costly. So anyways, now that we've finally gotten which one that is, that's a Boxer infantry fighting vehicle. Thank you everyone for sharing that with us. And it looks like they're heading into Ukraine to be used by the Ukrainians. And I never really specifically heard these get announced. So this may be something that was agreed to behind closed doors. Well, that we're now moving on from that bit of news. And let me make sure, that was our last bit of international news. And it was. And so, well, wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, everyone. I forgot the big news that didn't really make the headline for tonight's stream. But it's still big news nonetheless. And also, thank you so much for the support, Hal Rose. We're going to move down to Moldova, because a lot of y'all are always talking about the Moldovan situation, and y'all wouldn't be amiss to find it to be of some concern. The Russians control a quasi-state within Moldova called Transnistria, which is on its eastern border over here, and its capital is Tiraspol right here. You can see that right here. This small little strip is a fake country in a way, an unrecognized country by everyone in the world, except for the Russians, I believe, that want to live like it's Soviet times, or the Soviet era. People have traveled there just on YouTube for the freak show of the thing kind of existing. They have their own passports, they have pretty much everything on their own, and it appears that their surrogate country that they exist within, Moldova, is starting to say something that is probably going to freak out the Russians a little bit. The leader of Moldova, the president of Moldova, has declared today that they are going to be looking on moving down the path of NATO membership. This is something that they've never said before, and is most likely going to end up being really concerning for the Russians, because now there won't even be the chance of having a landlocked country like Moldova hosting Russian forces through the form of Transnistria. Now, if Moldova joins NATO, Transnistria will cease to exist, and Russian forces will be expelled from the country, the very few that are there. There's only around 1,200 to 2,000 Russian forces inside of Transnistria at all times, but they'll most likely be moving out after Moldova joins NATO. So once again, a fairly interesting thing to see, and I think that's a good step in the right direction. Pushing the Russians out of continental Europe is one of the best things to do, and try and keep them enclosed within Russia alone, and leave the rest of Europe under a large united alliance, such as NATO, to protect them from the Russians, who, as we can tell, are a little loony. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that neat little clip of international news, and now it's time for us to move on to a little bit of an unfortunate story. And I actually checked on Operator Starsky today, and he was also attending this funeral as well. As y'all know, a couple of days ago, a Super Puma flying in the area of Brovary crashed, killing all 9 crew members on board, and also, in total, 16 people, including the people on the ground. The funerals were held today for the ministers who were killed in the helicopter crash, and Zelenskyy was photographed attending the funeral of the fallen ministers. Very unfortunate to see, and it's good to know that they're being given a proper funeral. Of course, it's really something to think about that this war not only has ended up killing soldiers and citizens across the entirety of the country, but now it's also claimed the lives indirectly of some of the ministers of Ukraine through their continued actions and trying to keep on carrying through with government activities, and also with the vital war effort that's going on in the background. Once again, very unfortunate to think about. We're now going to be moving on from the area of Kyiv and on into our location unknowns, because we've actually seen something else really interesting today. And starting off with our first clip, we saw that an Iris-T had been spotted for the first time ever in Ukraine. This is the first picture ever that anyone has ever shown on YouTube or around the world of an Iris-T defense system. If y'all need a little bit of refreshing, because I also think it would be good to be refreshed on this thing, this is what an Iris-T defense system is. These were also sent by the Germans. You can see a mock-up missile that the Iris-T uses right there, and according to the information we have on Wikipedia, the maximum speed of the missile is around Mach 3. Its operational range is 16 miles, a somewhat shorter distance, somewhat comparable to a NASAMS, and its flight altitude, it can travel all the way up to 66,000 feet in altitude and hit a target at that height. So as long as the target is within 16 miles, nothing is really out of the range of an Iris-T missile. And from what we know, they are fairly effective, although we haven't seen them used in action a lot. They're also fairly cheap. A complete battery only costs around 140 million euros, and a battery is a quite large operational unit. So the idea of having a $140 million battery is somewhat cost efficient as well. Not only that, but several of these, we believe around 3 Iris-Ts, have been supplied to Ukraine, and hopefully they'll be used fairly well. And based off of this picture, it looks like they're being moved around to be put into some effective positions. This one's situated somewhere in a tree line, and we can see that it is very recent considering that the ground is snow-covered, and we know that the ground in Ukraine throughout most of the country right now is also snow-covered, so by and large, this thing is in Ukraine right now, and this picture did come from probably just yesterday or today. So very nice to see that some of the vital German support that has made it to Ukraine is now being used. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of location unknown news, and we're going to be moving on into our next bit, where we saw another interesting bit of foreign support that has never been filmed before, but finally got shown to be in Ukraine. The Sea Kings from the United Kingdom have now arrived as well, and we can see that this one right here is accompanied with some copyrighted music, and as it flies in, we can see that they've painted up the Sea King with Ukrainian colors, and we can also see a massive Ukrainian Air Force roundel on the back of it. We're assuming that this is some kind of a training operation where they're just getting used to how the Sea King will be operated, and based off of what they're doing, it looks like they're going to be planning on using the Sea Kings for some kind of a medical evacuations or supply transport. We can now see the Sea King flying off into the distance. Quite a cumbersome helicopter. A very odd-looking one, too, but I've got to tell y'all, I've got to be honest with y'all, I used to be a huge fan of the Sea King helicopters when I was a kid. So I'll show y'all some pictures of it. This one y'all may remember because back in the day, Prince William actually flew an RAF Rescue Sea King for a while, and it was painted up in this exact livery. The British have been, as far as I remember, retiring these, and I think they may have been completely retired by this point. It says it's in active service, but we see that the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force have both retired them. So as far as British service is concerned, all Sea Kings have been retired, and so they're pulling these out of mothballs inside of storage units to hand them over to the Ukrainians. Currently, the only two countries in the world that use Sea Kings are the German Navy, also known as the Kriegsmarine, and, well, actually, the Bundesmarine now. Back in the day, they used to be known as the Kriegsmarine, and also the Indian Navy. That is actually a really nice emblem that the Indian Navy's got.
Yeah, I like that. The colors are pretty nice.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. For some reason, it reminds me of LSU.
Ooh.
But anyways, moving on from that, we can see that only 344 of these things have been built, and their history has been very extensive. The British made, I believe, a license-built variant of an American helicopter, and if I remember correctly, this thing is based off of the Sikorsky. Yeah, it's the Sikorsky Sea King, but the British made their own called the Westland Sea King, which is a license-built variant. Going through its history, of course, it's had very expansive history, entering service around the late 1960s, and serving all the way up until, I think, the mid-2010s, and then they were phased out of British service, and they still serve on in the British and Indian armed forces. So, very interesting helicopter. These are not, and I have to say this heavily, these are not any form or variant of an attack helicopter. These are not multi-role in that degree. Now, you can use the Sea Kings as an anti-ship helicopter, which is very weird. I'll show you all that real quick. Sea King anti-ship helicopter, or anti-ship missile. And let me show you all a picture of this thing flying around with those equipped onto it. I believe that is a picture. Yeah, here we go. You can see the massive Exocet anti-ship missiles right down there below the Sea King, and that's what it can be used as an anti-ship missile helicopter. Very bizarre, you know, and when you think about it, it's like, oh, that's kind of weird that that thing has to get within range or a distance of a ship at sea, fire off a missile, and hope that thing hits. But it's fairly effective from what we've known throughout history. Whether it's effective nowadays or not, we're not really sure. And if the Ukrainians will use these in their naval variant, we're also not really sure either. But still, a very interesting helicopter with a very interesting history behind it. So let me take a sip of water real quick. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news past that neat little video. We're now going to be moving on into our next clip where we saw a Ukrainian drone operator conducting a pretty effective artillery strike. This thing was pretty wild, to say the least. We see the Ukrainians watching on their phone. When you see a house, when you see the shell explode,
Вот один бежит.
we see some Russians walking around right around there.
Он летит сейчас. Вот он. Вот, вон полетел, ебать.
Да, ускорился, сука. Только пятки сверкали. Вот что это выражение
Нет,
значит.
это космические войска.
It appears as though one of them learned to fly.
Is that possible?
Not with this kind of Jedi magic. They are flying. One of them did at least. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And you can see that the Ukrainian forces are getting a pretty good laugh out of watching Russians fly. Back in the day, back in Russia, when they were about to start off this war, some Russians said, "There's no way that you can win the war against Ukraine." And then the Russians said, "Really? Well, the day that the Ukrainians win this war will be the day Russians fly." And then they were proven wrong, because Russians actually flew. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And it's nice to know that the Ukrainians are getting a good little chuckle out of making sure that their armed forces are doing some pretty good and quick work against the Russian forces with their artillery. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown news, where we saw a modified Ukrainian drone. A very interesting video of it as well. Man, that is some music. We can see right here the drone hovering, we can see them panning the camera around it, and we can also see the little bomb cradle with the bomblet on it. Now, what the caption says is really interesting about this, and we have never been able to see bomblets much, in this kind of angle, often we usually see them just flying down to the ground, is that this is some kind of a modified VOG-17. And the VOG-17 is a pretty normal hand grenade that you'll see a lot of Russians using all over the place, and also a lot of Ukrainians. This is it right here. That's what a VOG-17 looks like. And apparently this one's being compared to, I think, a 7.62 by 39 shell, but I can't really tell for certain because there's no comparison to scale there. But that is just
looks like 300 black almost.
7.62 by 39 is pretty chubby. 7.62 by 39, like that, and that looks just like it. Oh, we don't want to go shopping. We want to go to images. Let's see here. So there it is. You can get that nice wolf stuff, like I think it's steel case. Yeah, steel case crap. But that looks just like it. Yeah, it is a 7.62 by 39 right there. 300 black is very similar in a way to its to the bullet's diameter and such things like that. But moving on from that, you can see that it's literally just a VOG, and they put a little fin on the back of it. Very smart, very, very simple and effective way to take a pretty much a grenade that would be launched from an AGS and then equip it onto the bottom of a drone and drop that thing dead on. It's also very cost effective when compared to just firing off a massive volley of these grenades from an AGS and allowing them to hit their target. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from this little interesting video right there and that really neat little drone, and moving on into our last bit of location unknown news before we go onto the internet to pull up something I could not find before the stream, where we saw a massive amount of drones. Now these are a lot of drones, and also little wargy. It's a little itty bitty wargy.
Little wargy.
Little wargy. A little wargy in Ukraine. What's that wargy doing, though? What the dog doing? But we can see right here a whole bunch of Mavics that have been bought, and they're going to be distributed to the front lines. And we can also see some of the beefier, bigger ones here. Just one of the big ones, I forgot the name of it, and two of
Midges.
Yeah, that thing. And then two of the smaller ones, and then just a whole bunch of Mavics. And the next picture, we also saw even more diesel generators. These things are Vulcan-powered diesel generators, and there's about 90 of them in this building that are also going to be sent to Ukraine. We also saw these things. It looks like these are tablets, I think, that are also going to be sent to Ukraine, probably to be used along with the drones. And then lastly, we saw a bunch more inner soul chargers, I think that's what the caption right here says, to be sent to Ukraine to help charge the drones. So all in all, pretty cool to know that they're pretty much sending in all the infrastructure needed to operate these drones, and also the drones as well in quite large numbers. And I also like that little corgi, a really, really cute little corgi down there, and I'm sure it's doing a really good job. Someone needs to put a helmet on that thing and get it to the front lines now, because I think that thing can win the war. And so with that, that's the end of that little clip, and now it's time for us to move on into the Kyiv Independent on Twitter and check out what they've got going on today. So, the Kyiv Independent, the independent English language journalism in Ukraine. So we're going to scroll down and look for the casualty report, because I couldn't find one today, so I know that here we go. Ooh! 860 Russian troops killed over the past 24 hours.
3 skid steer loaders gone in a day.
3 skid steers gone in a day. That's got it. The rip-off Bobcat people have got to be weeping right now, because that's like their entire yearly production right there wiped out in a minute. Another MLRS.
Look at that picture to the right over there.
Man, that's probably what he's looking like in these kinds of losses coming in each day. Let's see if there's any interesting reactions over here. 20K in a month. Wow. I wonder if they'll be running low on APVs if they already lost 6,256 of them. Russian losses are systematically increasing, but they're still taking new territory step by step. Yeah, but if they're taking like 860 dead guys for like 5 feet, that doesn't really matter if they're making ground. They're losing. I realize Russia is suffering heavy losses, but I'm taking 120k losses to include seriously injured, captured, otherwise 120k dead, and you'd be adding at least another 250k wounded, and you're talking about, well, that's fairly accurate. Otherwise, why would they mobilize another 300,000 guys? If they were taking only 120,000 losses, they could probably just soak that up in the armed forces of the Russian Federation and just send in guys that have been at bases in Russia without having to call up mobilizations. But fairly interesting questions have been brought up here. Yes. Strong arm, yellow heart, blue heart, strong arm, yellow heart, blue heart, strong arm, and the numbers will triple once all the new and stronger weapons from the West arrives, and hopefully the Leopards. But still, The casualty losses here have been quite high, and let's get back to the numbers here, as we saw another 15 armored personnel carriers destroyed today. Quite nice. We also saw another 15 supply trucks destroyed. Also, very nice. Another tank destroyed, only the one. 6 artillery systems, 5 drones, and an MLRS. Not a bad day all around, and I cannot lie. I think it's a pretty good day for the Ukrainian armed forces, considering that they took out approximately 860 Russian infantrymen. That's not bad at all. That's an entire BGG worth killed. So I gotta say, hey, quite nice. And so with that, that's the end of the casualty report. But you gotta give it to the Ukrainians. Hopefully they can keep this thing going, keep racking up the counts like this, and keep everyone here in the West cheering them on. And so with that, we're now moving on from the casualty report, and we're going to be moving down towards the front lines. And this has been happening very quickly. We've actually covered all of the international news, a decent amount of the news inside Ukraine, and now we're moving into the northeast. Actually, real quick, we're going to not move from the northeast today because we usually start there once we move from the location unknowns. We're going to start in the southeast, where there have been reports and information about massive troop buildups on both sides, both by the Ukrainians and the Russians. And it's been incredibly interesting to hear this, because the British Ministry of Defense was the one to state this today, saying that based off of satellite footage, they've been seeing this on both sides, and it may be showing that something will be happening here very soon. Something quite large, as a matter of fact, and we're not really sure who's going to be starting it, whether it be the Ukrainians or Russians, but it will definitely be the next major battle in the Ukrainian war. Now, a poll went up a while ago, and it was incredibly interesting. I'd have to say, Matthew, I was quite exhilarated and enthralled by it. And so, could you guide us through that poll?
All right, so we actually have 2 polls to go over, and the very first one said, do you think Ukraine needed a donation of military ships like we saw in the first piece of news? It looks like 65% said yes, it will help Ukraine, 14% said unsure, and 21% said no, that was somewhat pointless. Now on this one, I've got to say, maybe I'm not completely informed, and maybe somebody can let me know, but it seems somewhat pointless because Ukraine really doesn't fight with their navy very much, but I guess it could be helpful one day. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it's fairly helpful, especially after the war is over, because the class of ship that the British are sending are minesweepers, and we know that the Russians have mined the Black Sea and the coastal waters of Ukraine, and so it'll be very important for them in the future to have these minesweeping vessels, so that way they can move around and defuse these mines. One thing that's really interesting about most minesweeping ships is that their hulls are not made out of any kind of metallics. I believe, if I'm correct, they're all made out of fiberglass, because most anti-ship mines are magnetic, and so a minesweeper can actually go through the seas, through these minefields pretty much, bump into them if need be, and not cause them to detonate or explode, and then defuse each mine as they come by them. So I would have to say, a very important delivery of, I guess you could say, ships to Ukraine, especially after the war, to help them with the demining operations and also help them to rebuild their navy that did take some losses due to scuttling in the earlier parts of the war. If y'all don't remember, the flagship of Ukraine, the only frigate that they had, was scuttled in the port of Mykolaiv because Russian forces were advancing so quickly back then that it was feared that that frigate would fall into Russian hands. Kind of funny now, because they're not even close to Mykolaiv, and they'll never get close to capturing Mykolaiv again, but that was the ideas at the time, and everyone was fairly scared that that would actually happen. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and let's get on into the next one.
All right, and the second poll said, will Moldova be currently able to join NATO? Surprisingly, pretty evenly distributed responses here. It looks like 34% said yes, they can and will join. 25% said no, they can't join right now. 23% said likely not due to active fight. And 18% said unsure and undecided. Now, it's my understanding that Moldova does have an active conflict going on, so if I'm not wrong, I think that might bar them from NATO admission until that's over. But Enforcer, what say you?
They do not have an active conflict going on right now. They've actually signed a treaty back in the 1990s with the Transnistrians, where they're at an official state of peace, and they allow them to be a semi-autonomous region within Moldova. So they are not in the current conflict. They are actually a nation at peace, much like Finland and Sweden. And so it'd be fairly simple for them to enter NATO. All they would have to do is go through the application process and probably try and later on either depose the Transnistrian government inside of Tiraspol or push them out, one or the other. Or The other thing that they could do is that they could actually go to war against the Transnistrians, crush the Russians inside of Moldova, and then also crush the Transnistrian army, which is incredibly small, and then take the area over, annex it back into being under direct Moldovan control, and then apply to join NATO. And that should be a fairly simple process, considering that Russian aircraft cannot enter Moldova because they would have to fly through Ukrainian airspace, and they would most likely get shot down. So any kind of supply aircraft, like an Ilyushin 76 and Antonov 22 or anything similar that could actually keep those Russian forces within Moldova alive, would get shot down before they even arrived. Not only that, but Transnistria doesn't have any coastline. Like, this is as close as they get to the coastline, and it's literally just about a quarter-mile away with no port. So it's not like the Russians can support them by sea either, and once again, they would have to sail their ships well within anti-ship missile range of the Ukrainian coastline to even try and set up some kind of a bridgehead from the coast to Moldova to supply them, and then that has its own myriad of issues because they would most likely get blown up and destroyed before any of those supplies would make it into Moldova. So the Moldovans could, in theory, easily crush the Transnistrians. It probably would take a couple of months, and then they could go and join NATO without the Transnistrians even in existence. Also, someone else...
I didn't know that, actually.
Also, Brent Nanset said, fly from Kaliningrad? And that's not going to be easy either, because then they got to fly over European Union airspace with the Russian military aircraft, and that would be breaching a national airspace of the Polish, the Slovakians, the Hungarians, the Romanians, the Ukrainians, the Lithuanians, the Germans, the Austrians, really anyone they tried to fly over. That military aircraft would be violating their sovereign airspace, and that aircraft, by pretty much international law, could be shot down or forced to turn back. So there's no way to supply the Moldovans that way either. Well, to supply the Transnistrians that way either. So in every direction, the 1,200 to 2,000 Russian soldiers that are currently stationed in Moldova are literally screwed over. If anything happened right now, there is no way to help them. They are completely on their own, and probably would have to try and engage in some kind of guerrilla warfare to just attempt to survive or inflict any kind of losses on Moldovan forces. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, because honestly, at this point, I wouldn't see the reason why the Moldovans wouldn't want to crush the Transnistrians, because there's really nothing stopping them from doing that and also crushing the Russians within Moldova as well. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll for now. So moving on to our Super Chat questions, of course, we're going to grab 3 of them. The first one goes to Duncan VR, who puts in a $75 donation, and it is Duncan's birthday. So happy birthday to you, Duncan.
Happy birthday, Duncan.
Indeed. And he says, Ba moo ba. I just had burgers for my birthday, meow ba. I had some good old eBay old stamp sales, so here is some burger money for you too. Baba, moo rough, baba, get a few burgers on me. Oink, oink, Putin died already, question mark. Igor likes McTasties, quack ba.
And thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR. And also, happy birthday. Really cool to hear. And also, you had hamburgers, and I wonder what kind. And I think this is going to have to be a poll, Matthew, because this one I would like to see the answers to. Now, I haven't had Wendy's in quite a while, probably 7 years. But I had Wendy's for the first time in many years just about a week ago, and they were killer good. I could not believe that their hamburgers had improved in quality so much. So let's throw up a poll, and let's ask this question, Matthew. Who has the best burgers? Whataburger, Wendy's, Culver's, or what would be a fourth option?
Five Guys?
Yeah, Five Guys. Throw that up. We're not putting McDonald's on the list because in America, McDonald's is like F tier. So we're not even going to put them on the poll to have anyone pick. But still, with that, I got to thank you so much for the support once again, Duncan VR. And I cannot believe that you supported us on your birthday. I thank you so much for giving us a present on your birthday. But I got to thank you so much once again for being a longtime channel viewer, a longtime channel supporter, helping us to keep this channel running, and also throwing in the funny animal noises because it always gets a good laugh at a live chat. It is also a very memorable thing. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next. But happy birthday once again.
And yee-haw! Happy birthday to you again. And up next, we have a $50 super chat from Hal Rose, who says, Enforcer, how many drone grenades can you buy versus one Abrams tank?
How many drone grenades can you buy versus one Abrams tank? Great question. So let's pull up a VOG 17 grenade cost. So, how much does it cost to buy a grenade? So an M67 grenade is about 45 bucks. Let's just say that the VOG 17 grenades, which are different, of course, fairly different than an M67, let's just say that they cost in the ballpark of 35 bucks a pop. So an Abrams costs, let me pull it up, Abrams cost about $6.2 million a piece in the fiscal year of 99. So that's 1999. In 2016, they cost $8.92 million. So let's get the numbers. 8.92 million divided by 35. You could buy 254,857 of those little VOG 17 grenades for the cost of a single M1 Abrams tank. That is unbelievable. When you put that into context, a tank costs a lot of money. You could keep an AGS. What is an AGS's rate of fire? An AGS 17 rate of fire. Rate of fire. 400 rounds a minute. So, at 400 rounds a minute, it would take... Golly. Wait, hang on. Let me divide this a little further. So, for the cost of an Abrams, you can keep an AGS with enough ammunition, and of course this is if the barrel doesn't melt down, and that's impossible, the barrel would melt down. You could fire an AGS grenade launcher, which I'll show you a picture of, right here, for over 10 and a half consecutive hours straight for the cost of a single M1 Abrams.
Damn.
That is crazy. Imagine how many little pop marks there would be from those little VOGs, firing like 250,000 of them over the course of 10 and a half hours. This thing wouldn't even be able to physically handle firing 230,000 shells because the barrel would melt. Probably all of the inner workings of the AGS itself would melt. The drum would literally be astronomically sized. You wouldn't even be able to get a magazine big enough to put onto the side of the AGS. So you just have to get this never-ending belt. That would logistically be impossible to do, but that would be the craziest thing to ever see. But yes, that's how much it costs to get an Abrams versus how many little VOG 17s you can get for the cost of one, and it's about 250,000 of them. So fairly cost effective, and in my opinion, that might be a little bit better to do is just get VOG 17 shells and just load them up onto a drone over 250,000 times and just drop them with pinpoint accuracy. How much better can it get? But with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and allowing us to go down a really weird rabbit hole there and finding out how much things cost and how weird that would be. But with that, we are on to, I think, the last one of this segment, if I'm correct, Matthew.
We are, but before we get to that one, let's quickly go over this poll. What is your favorite hamburger place? It looks like 40% said Wendy's, 15% said Whataburger, 12% said Culver's, and 32% said Five Guys. Now, for me on this poll, I can tell you which ones I wouldn't want. I wouldn't want Wendy's because the hamburgers are really greasy, in my opinion. Wouldn't want Five Guys because their burgers and fries are really good, but you'd go broke if you ate there all the time. Whataburger, pretty good, but they get the order wrong a lot. So I'd have to go with Culver's, but Enforcer, what say you?
I'd honestly have to tell you, I'd go with Wendy's. The Wendy's burgers were killer good last I had them, which was like, I think the day before yesterday. I really thought they were delicious. Really blew Culver's out of the water, in my opinion, because Culver's is good. But once you have Wendy's again, it's like, oh man, Wendy's has got the flavors. We're not sponsored by Wendy's, by the way. I just want to make that clear. But still, Wendy's was delicious, I have to say. Five Guys is the best tasting, though, out of the whole list, but no one wants to go broke eating hamburgers. You know, hamburgers are supposed to be affordable. You don't want to go and get like a $15 hamburger, and the size of them keeps getting smaller for the same price. Like, the Five Guys burgers used to be massive. Like, they used to be an entire full-course meal on their own. Now they've gotten small enough that they don't really feel like that anymore, so... You know, Wendy's is the go-to for me now, and I would have to say the least. And also someone said, you're a man of culture, Matt, for choosing Culver's.
Of course. And Culver's is good. I love it. Now, Five Guys is honestly the best choice on the list, but it's just too expensive. It's like you can get 2 Culver's like meals for the cost of one Five Guys like hamburger.
Yeah, that is true. And so with that, now that we've addressed that poll fairly well, and we see where everyone's loyalties lie with the hamburgers, also put this up, Matthew, as a poll. It's going to be a simple yes or no. We're not going to let anyone do the in-between either. It's going to be either yes or no. Is McDonald's good? Yes or no? I want to see how many people actually think McDonald's is good, because I'd be interested. Oh, wait a minute. Put a third option. Put yes or no. And
Oh, man.
Dang it. It's already up, isn't it? Yeah. I was about to say, put a third option. Say, I can't say I live in Europe, because McDonald's is totally different outside of the United States. Oh, dang. All right, we'll get to that. We'll let that poll simmer for a little, because the results are absolutely mind-blowing. I didn't think it would be that bad. But anyways, it's now time for us to move on to the final question of this segment. So with that, who is the person who put in the last question for this question segment before we get back to the news?
All right, and that viewer is Mech Tactical, who puts in a $25 donation and says, "Evening, I have an odd question, a rabbit hole, you might say. Is being a history major what drove you to be a living historian? And do other history majors historically relive also, as it were?" P.S. I'm worried to read this because of what Mech Tactical said last time. Let me copy and paste this and send it over to you.
All right.
And you can see what this means.
What does this mean?
That's the last sentence.
What does this mean? The herb slide and cider, bad news. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. So unfortunately, I can't really address that because I don't know what it means. But I do thank you for the support, Mech Tactical. And I would have to answer that question by saying this. I wasn't even in college when I first became a reenactor or a living historian. Living historian is kind of like calling a cashier a sales associate or something, in my opinion. So I just call myself a reenactor because that's kind of what we do. We reenact history, although we are living, whatever. That's a whole wordage thing in itself, and the reenacting community beats each other over the head and kills each other over the wordage. I just say we're reenactors. But moving on from that and answering that question, when I first started reenacting, I was in high school, and I had gotten done playing bagpipes at a Veterans Day program, and while I was still dressed up, well, no, I wasn't dressed up, I actually changed out of the kilt and everything, I went to a park near me, a place where reenactment was going on at the same time, and I was like, oh, well, that'd be great, I could go there, and in my opinion, I was like, I could go to this place, and I could go find some guns, like some flintlocks, because I was below the age of 18, so I was like, hey, those things are technically considered not firearms, it would be cool to get one. So I went there looking for them, found out that the guy who used to run that stand had died a year or two ago, so they sold off all of his guns, and there was no such thing like that around anymore. And then I ran into this group of reenactors that were dressed up like Scottish mercenaries. So then I asked them, like, what they were doing, and they were like, oh, we were, like, representing this really weird, like, out there group, like, that no one knows about in American history, called the McKay's Independent Ranger Company. I think that's the actual correct name. It's been so long since I've done that specific one that I forgot it. But I was like, oh, cool. I was like, no way. I was like, I just got done playing bagpipes. And they're like, oh, cool. You should come and reenact with us. Oh, we've been looking for a bagpiper. That would really make the whole Scottish thing work really well. So the next day, I showed up, because it was a weekend, and I got some, like, borrowed clothes from them, wore my kilt, all that stuff, played the bagpipes with them, and then they're like, hey, you ought to stick around with the group. So I stuck around with the group, and then I moved from doing McKay's Ranger Company in the 1730s up to the 1910s as a World War I reenactor, and that's where the enforcer profile picture comes from. That's actually me in the reenacting uniform right there, so that's what, that's where that comes from. And then after that, there was another little interesting thing where I actually have, like, this priest robe thing, like the old, like, let me see if I can find it. It's not a priest, it's like a monk's robe. And it doesn't look like it looks like this. Well, actually, it looks just like that, nearly. And I got that, and I did Maldonado's company from the DeSoto expedition, which traveled through Alabama, and I was representing a priest with an actual name, because most of the time when you do reenactments, you don't really, like, do that whole LARPing thing where you pretend like you're someone. But with DeSoto, We did. That was the only time I ever did. And so I was the priest Juan Gallegos, from the Maldonado expedition, who was an absolute G. I mean, like, if you read his story, it was really cool. So I did him once, and then I never did him again, but I still got the monk's robes. And then after that, finally, like the last thing I did, which was last year on the 4th of July, which was in the middle of running the stream, and I feel like I almost died from doing it because I'll be honest with y'all, sitting in this chair and doing this every single day will make you, I guess you could say, waste away, because there's not really a lot of physical activity involved, and you really can't tie that into doing this. You're just sitting in a chair. So I felt like I almost died of heat stroke doing that on the 4th of July. Not only that, it was like 100 degrees with 100% humidity, and I was wearing nothing but wool. But the last thing I did was a Jaeger impression. Jaeger Rev War. Let me see if I put that in. I did these guys right here, and I dressed exactly up like them. Went to an event. Actually, Jay Bagwell was there. He was actually in the crowd, and we did some American Rev War reenacting stuff. We didn't have Jaeger rifles. I was actually using a Brown Bess, which is a historical inaccuracy. They never used them. They actually used Jaeger rifles instead. But that was the last time that I've reenacted, which was all the way back on the 4th of July. I've never either had the time to do it, or I've had the stuff to do it since then, because, this group that I'm in, it does multiple different eras, so you have to get all new stuff for it. And so that was the last thing I did. But the whole history degree thing in college, getting back to answering that, it had nothing to do with me being a living historian. I was a living historian or a reenactor before I ever got a degree in history. And it's always funny because people who are into history either think reenacting is really stupid or they think reenacting is really cool. And I've run into both in college. I've run into people who are like, history is history. You can't go back into history and try and relive it or anything. And then you got the people who are like, cool, that's so neat. It's one or the other. It's like that with everything. It's like that with bagpipes too. They either love them or they hate them. But that's the story of my whole reenacting thing. And no, it didn't have anything to do with getting a history degree at all. And funnily enough, for most of the time while I've been in college, I've hardly done anything with reenacting at all. Well, I used to do a lot more when I had time, but now that I don't have time, I hardly get to do anything with it, which is kind of sad because I would love to do more reenacting, and I would love to get more involved with it again. It's just that the idea of doing that, it's practically impossible. Anyways, I've seen some questions here because a lot of y'all have been asking questions. Some people have been saying we need bagpipes. But, we're going down a really long rabbit hole here, actually. I'll cut this short. We'll save this for the question segment at the end of the news. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, McTactical. I hope that does address the question fairly well as to how that all came to be and what I've done. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on out of this question segment and back into the news, and we're now going to be moving down to the south. Now, I don't have any video or picture evidence to back this one up, so just trust me on this because this came from the British Ministry of Defense, and they've largely been fairly accurate with their reporting and information through the course of the war. So here's what the lay of the land is right now. They have seen on satellite footage a massive buildup of Ukrainian forces in the Zaporizhian area, and they've also seen a massive buildup of Russian forces in the Zaporizhian area as well. However, it appears that based off of the Ministry of Defense's report, they're saying that the Ukrainian buildup started to begin before the Russian buildup did. So it seems as though that is indicating that the Ukrainians may be planning to do something in this area, and we may see the offensive that we've talked about before, heading into the direction of Melitopol, finally beginning sometime soon. And it looks like the Russians are trying to pull some of their fighting forces together from other stagnant areas of the front lines, if possible, to try and be ready to defend against this attack. If this is the case, we may be seeing that the Ukrainians commit another blitzkrieg-like offensive like they did in the Balaklia area or down in the Kherson area on their race to Melitopol to split the Russian forces in two in the south. And if that does happen, we may see that the war does start to enter a terminal phase, a permanent terminal phase for the Russians, where the areas of Kherson that they still control and Crimea begin to slowly wither away and fall apart as the Ukrainians will chip away at them bit by bit. The eastern part, beyond Melitopol to the east, for example, Berdyansk, Mariupol, Donetsk, Luhansk, they will probably fare much better than anything over to the west will, because the west relies on its connections to the east for its supply lines. And you can see that all of these have been highlighted. The ones in red are the ones that cross the Kerch Bridge, and the ones in green are the ones that are directly connected to mainland Russia. So practically everything beyond Melitopol would turn red. It would all turn red. It wouldn't be supplied, and Russian forces would be really scraping by to even do anything in that area any longer. So hopefully that is the case. Hopefully the Ukrainians do something like that, because I think that that will do very well for them. But once again, this is a Ministry of Defense report, and one thing that we've seen is that governmental reports have not always been accurate over the course of this war. You know, just hence look at General Milley, because he said about everything under the sun. And while he's not part of the British Ministry of Defense, he's from the American Department of Defense. That shows you that it's not always going to be accurate what they're saying and what they're reporting. And I don't think he has any clue what he's saying. Like, honestly, you know, not talking about him beyond the Ukraine war, he's really, in my opinion, made himself look like a goof over the entirety of the Ukraine war, because at the beginning of the war, he was the one who was spearheading, oh, the Ukrainian military, they're going to fall apart in 3 days to a week. It's going to be devastating. We're probably going to see that the country will collapse, and then they survive beyond a week. And then he's sitting there going, well, I expected that the whole time. It was never a chance that they'd fall apart. And then beyond that, he starts talking about the casualty reports, and he just comes up with random numbers. Sometimes they're lower than the last time he stated the casualties were. Sometimes they're way higher. Sometimes he just goes and says stuff that doesn't even have any backing. I've got to be honest with you. Over the course of this war, Milley has become about as inaccurate as the Hindustan Times in terms of the information he's been giving out. So, you know, just giving a general disclaimer, there are a lot of people out there that you can get news from and trust, but I would say that Milley, as an individual source of information, should largely be discredited, because it just changes almost every single day. But with that, we're going to be moving back on into the news of what's been going on in that area, and the only bit of news that we've gotten from the Zaporizhian front is this one video where a Russian SPG and a base were destroyed by an artillery strike from Ukrainian forces. Also, we're going to have to mute it because the music's playing. And wait a minute, this is the one where the Russians flew. I think we're about to see the Russians fly. You see them all moving around this little small house. And we can see the artillery shell hit, and let's see if that's the one where Russians fly. I didn't see it in that specific barrage. Well, that specific shell. Let's see here. We see one of them just kind of, you know, moving around on the ground. He got peppered with shrapnel, so he's not having a fun time. We can see some more of the guys running around. We see some of them actually running over to help the wounded guy, but now the video's cut to another area. So it looks like we didn't get to see the Russian fly. Now we're watching this little road, and wait a minute. What was that? Okay, so there's a Russian tank right there. You can see the top of the turret. And something came flying in right here and flew right into it and has caused the ammunition to immediately start cooking off. I don't know what that is, though, because considering the shallow angle it looks to have come in on, that may have been an ATGM and not an artillery shell. Now we can see him cooking. And hey, Walter, thank you so much for the support. And with that, that's the end of the clip. And it looks like the Russians have fried and pigs flied. And so with that, I know it's flew, but I had to say flied so that way it rhymed. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip of news. The only thing we've gotten in the Zaporizhian area, and that's another thing that the British Ministry of Defense stated, is that while there have been massive military buildups on both sides in the southern front, there have been very, very small engagements between them. We've seen only skirmish-size engagements in between the Russians and the Ukrainians, instigated by both sides about fairly. Sometimes the Russians pushing onto the Ukrainian side, sometimes the Ukrainians pushing onto the Russian side, but there's been no massive outbreak of a battle that has occurred yet, and we'll be waiting to see if it does happen. Now, moving on out of this area in the south, which that's really all the news we have for today, and moving on into the northeast, there has been a distinct lack of news once again from the northeast. And this is a little surprising, because y'all may remember that about a couple of months ago, I believe it would have been in late November, I said that this would most likely be the area that the Ukrainian forces would commit an attack in, and we never saw one. It appears that while their supply lines remained fairly intact and were operating at a pretty decent efficiency, they never conducted an offensive in this area. It looks like they used the winter weather to try and wait it out and just allow their defensive positions to be somewhat strong and give the Russians a inherent disadvantage if they were trying to conduct an offensive in this area during the frigid weather. But moving on from that, we've also seen that in the frontline area of the Northeast today, over the past 24 hours, there have been practically very few changes. The only change that we've seen is that no man's land has closed rapidly in this area, and now the Ukrainians and the Russians are just probably stone skipping distance away from each other. Beyond that, in the Northeast, nothing has happened at all. However, there has been one clip in Kreminna where we saw the Ukrainian forces take 2 more Russian prisoners. And we're going to mute that. But we can see them looking around right there. We see the Russians on the ground. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But good to know that they were able to take on 2 more Russian prisoners somewhere in the Kreminna area, and hopefully that shows that there is some kind of a momentum occurring there. We haven't seen, of course, any frontline changes largely to speak of, and if we go over the past 24 hours, once again, nothing's changed. But they do say that there is a small ongoing fight there being conducted by the Ukrainian forces as they attempt to try and push further towards Kreminna. However, that battle has occurred a little bit slower than we thought it would. We thought that they would have made it by Kreminna, to Kreminna about 2 weeks ago. So either our timetables were off or this isn't going how it was planned. We're now going to be moving on from the Kreminna area and down into the direction of Seversk, where we saw an improvised grad firing at the Russians. A very neat little video, and once again showing the ingenuity of the Ukrainian armed forces. So, here's the clip. Hopefully there's no music. See him pushing a button, I think. Just smacking that thing firmly.
Smacking that button like you should smack the like button.
Hey! And this is what happens if you hit the like button. A little rocket will go flying off. Right at the end of the video, actually. And any second now, and there we go. And there went the rocket. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, really cool to see the improv grad that the Ukrainians have made, and hopefully they've made more of these things. Of course, they are not as, I guess you could say, as bristling with rockets as a BM-21 grad or an Uragan, but they do help to provide small rocket artillery support in areas that may be lacking in overall grad batteries. And so quite nice to see, and hopefully this thing is fairly accurate with its rocket fire. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of a video and on towards the Verkno-Kamyanka area, where we saw a Russian ammo dump explode. And I've got to tell you, are you a Russian ammo dump? Because you're looking kind of dumpy. When you hear the music playing that you hear on a Microsoft Windows tutorial, and the artillery is falling right down onto the Russian forces, and we could see that something flew. I'm not sure if those were Russians flying or something of theirs flying, but something was airborne. We now see more artillery shells exploding onto the tree line. We see some ammunition flying around, giving a nice little fireworks show. Put in reverse, Terry! But with that, that's the end of the clip, and it's good to see that they were able to land a pretty nice barrage somewhere in the Verkno-Kamyanka area that hit the Russian forces and also caused a small ammo detonation. Now we've covered that news, it's time for us to move on down into the Bakhmut area, where, of course, almost all of the news on the front lines originated from today. And if we go over the past 24 hours of the Bakhmut area, oh my god, they've made a little bit of ground right here. Oh, massive victory. Oh, man, and they only have to take the rest of Donetsk, which in comparison is quite large. You can't even really tell that there was a frontline change there, but hey, modest gains, guys. The Russians will do it eventually. They only have to lose about 1,000 guys a day to make that much ground, and eventually it'll add up to something, right? I mean, they'll maybe have taken a whole entire field by the end of this year at this going rate. So patience, everyone, patience. And so with that, Now it's time for us to move on into the actual videos. One thing that I used to hear from no particular source is that we've turned nearly into a reaction channel, and at this point, with such little frontline movement, there's really not a lot to cover. So unfortunately, we can only really cover what the videos are showing, because beyond the Russians just getting pasted every day, there's not anything going on. So moving on to our first clip in the northern flank, we saw the Ukrainians firing at some Russian positions. And we can see the MT Rapira moving up through the tree line. And they are whacking down that tree line. We can now see them loading the Rapira gun on top of the MTLB. We can now see that the MT Rapira is nearly ready to fire. We can see this assistant gunner getting behind the vehicle.
Dang.
We see the Rapira fire, the shell eject. And Valorum said, again, where is the snow? I don't really know, because this is located to the Bakhmut area, and it says that it is very recent, so maybe the snow has melted. I'm not really sure.
З другої ручки.
Там одна зламана. Отсечка, ёп. Гармата! Опа, снаряда!
We see the Rapira firing again.
5 штук.
And that's the end of the clip. But once again, really interesting to see these little MT Rapiras in operation, considering that it's a pretty much Frankenstein, or it's not Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein's monster, Frankenstein's the doctor. Anyways, it is a Frankenstein of the AT-12 Rapira gun and the MTLB. A really interesting combination, and it looks like the Ukrainians have made it a frontline favorite in a way. We're now going to be moving further on down and directly into Soledar, where we saw the Ukrainian Special Forces still operating somewhere on the very outskirts of the western side of Soledar and engaging Russian forces. Really neat intro, of course. We can hear the firefights ongoing. This guy getting an RPG. Firing a machine gun out of a multi-story building. You see this guy switching magazine. Very short video, but once again giving a little bit of a look at the Ukrainian Special Forces that are still fighting for the area, and of course it looks like they're doing fairly well, considering that approximately 900 Russian soldiers have been killed, and they've only been able to take a very small area, just about another 20 yards of a railroad track. We're now going to be moving even on down a little bit further into Soledar, where we saw the Wagner also getting blown away again today. Who would have known? It's like, for some reason, they suck or something. And so, here's the clip. And guess what? Is our boy Madiyar. Igor!
Чи почують?
Igor!
І давай. Тра-та-та-та-та-та-та-та-та.
Ra-ta-ta-ta-ta.
Тра-та-та-та-та-та-та-та-та. Що
We
за
see the
хренотень?
Russian firing at the drone.
Ну от чим ти б все слухав, коли
You just
тебе
can't hit
вчили,
it.
де ти там все вчив? На злажуваннях. На
Maybe if
висоті
he had a
500 метрів
shotgun.
по
Maybe he would. Let me go back and look at that
на
video. Do
злажуваннях.
this loading thing.
Але Кевін
There we go.
Костнер. 21 січня. Кровавий гектар. Продовжуємо.
And now we see the Russians not paying attention to the drone and just wandering around.
Робоча дев'ятка збирається до виходу на парад бойових дій. Я вирішив фільмувати, тобто виставляти вам по окремим групам, щоб коні, люди, все це не мішало. Тим більше ця дев'ятка потішила тим, що ми практично не витратили на них БК. Вона ще трошки і навчаться вони самоліквідуватися на чарівному гектарі. Зараз побачите, то буде швидко. От вони такі часто нерішучі, треба на них трошки такого повпливати.
We see the artillery hitting them, and it looks like some of them got toasted.
Починають бігти. А нам то й треба, щоб вони на відкритій площі були. Щоб ми швидко виділи. То нормально. Перший пішов, другий пішов. Третій, четвертий, п'ятий, шостий, сьомий, восьмий. Всі біжуть. Лягай. Давай.
And we can see something very interesting here. Madiara, I think, is also pointing it out. They're having a little bit of spacing. We don't see that often. So we'll see these guys actually read the manual, but sadly, it's going to be no use to them. Now they're crawling forward. But this guy, he's just walking around like an old man.
Ні, та там іще один ззаді, взагалі той. Той, здається, мені і не вилізе з тих корчів. Чи вилізе, ну... Дуже.
You see that they've all stopped about after crawling 5 yards. They must be exhausted.
Все, всіся вишикували, можеш пластувати.
Now we see they're all chilling again. And we can see that as they move forward, their spacing is getting closer and closer here in the center of the formation. They're all now crawling again. And it looks like the video has also been sped up.
Повзуть, коротше, практично ключом. Як... Не буду порівнювати, то благородні птахи. Просто повзуть. Як дебіли повзуть.
This guy's getting a little tired of crawling back here. He's almost like about to crawl on all fours. Like a baby or something.
Добре.
This is probably the most physical work they've ever done in their lives.
Oh yeah, you can tell, man. They're hardly moving.
Маскуються. А одного завжди буде особлива думка. О. Побіг.
Oh, look, he just said screw it. He's running.
Ще один чисто командний ігрок. О, тут всі.
You see that some of them are really struggling with the crawling.
Маршрут.
Now they're all just getting up and running because they got tired of it. So they did all that for nothing. And now this guy up here, he was crawling so well, and he's so far away from everyone else, he doesn't know that the rest of them have gotten up and moved off, so he's just stuck up there, and he's about to get up and not figure out where anyone went.
Розуміємо, звідки вони прийшли. Звідтам прийшли. Сюди йдуть. Це важливо розуміти, бо потім буде прикол. Все, набігалися, втомилися. О, знову муся дрон мерещить. Ну і правильно. Огонь!
Well, you see that they've now gotten rid of the...
Стріляй.
Wait a minute.
Набігалися, втомилися.
Hang on. Watch this guy. Did I see this correctly? Did this guy just blow this guy's helmet off?
О, знову муся дрон мерещить. Ну і правильно. Огонь!
Oh, no, it just fell off. Okay. I was about to say...
There was a puff of smoke or something with it.
Yeah, I think he fired and the helmet just fell off at the same time as coincidence. But look, the grouping is now gone. They're not doing any spacing. They're all just right on each other in a huddle.
Давай. Все, тепер ховайся, бо я здачі дам. Лежать, як і здохлі. І утить не вийшли, і туди не дійшли. О, тут той окопчик вам треба. Той у нас комбайновий конвейер починає працювати. А ті лежать,
You
дивіться.
see him pointing out the guys down there on the little hill.
Ну, поки ніч не ясно. А тепер починається справжній ржач. Той, де вони лежали, їх нема. Поки пілот міняв батарейку, повернувся, нема. Що робиться? Вонися розвернули в другу сторону.
We now see they're running again. They're not doing the crawling stuff anymore. That was a little too fancy for them. The rest of the guys are all just in a big group once again. This guy got tired. He's just wandering off. The rifle is just like dragging across the ground. He's just holding it by the sling. And he's just walking very slowly, very tiredly. He's literally doing that too. He's not even like ready to shoot the rifle if he needed to.
Вони розвернулися в обратну зворотню сторону, туди, звідки прийшли, і відкрили вогонь. Вони реально ведуть стрілковий бій в ту сторону, з котрої прийшли, долбойоби. Мало того, двоє з них в обхід пішли, а третій по периметру наверх туди. Ну, той, що не приймає участі в тій дев'ятці в бойових діях, він так просто рахується. Дивіться, ведуть бій. В свою сторону.
And I think they're trying to shoot at a drone or they're shooting ahead at something else.
Ну, пора, мабуть, трошки в цю їх незрозумілу нам взаємодію внести корективи. Цей взагалі випхався, сів, йому так зручно стріляти, у нього пузо не дозволяє маленького
He probably said he'll die soon.
Yeah, probably.
Аналізувати ситуацію, то це і називається friendly fire, не погодження.
Well, he said that in straight English. He was like, well, hold it, friendly fire. It's like, dang, all right.
Ця штурмова група пішла,
This guy's down here, he's just fiddling with his helmet or something.
трошки заблукала на 1 гектарі, полежала, подумала, щось там по компасу постучав, розвернувся в зворотню сторону. В зворотню сторону підходила назустріч, мабуть, наступна штурмова бригада, дивиться, хтось пре. Хто пре? Ворог пре. Що робити? Вогонь! А ті думають, а нам що робити? І нам вогонь! О, ті ся двоє сховали, з фланга обійшли. Типу, то з тої дев'ятки, що блукає. От вони, поряд. Ідеальна картинка. Найби друг друга почпокали, але треба на неї трохи впливати.
Because they're still sitting on the berm. They've been there for quite a while.
45-та. Заряджай. У мене таке враження, що всі ті
I see some folks in the chat saying that my daughter is saying that they're shooting in the opposite direction.
And they're lost.
Говорять, що, навірно,
They're lost. I wouldn't doubt it.
Як він? Відгорожувальний рубіж. Навірно, контролюють, щоб ми домой не вернулись. Ну, коротше, щось собі там молотять, лежать, поки тут як суслики. Які суслики? Тюлені, хробаки лежать.
Marcy attacker said, oh!
Бабах! Цей постріл
I think they got got.
розібрати на деталі, бо він чи не єдиний. То свят в цьому, виконуючи це завдання, стільки армії БК зберіг. Та група. Ну, одним словом, зараз подивимося, навіть снаряд побачимо.
Totally not.
Бадабу!
Hey!
Jaga, jaga.
Jaga, jaga. Totally not. Faria said, is this the real Russian army? Yeah, this is them. This is the cream of the crop right here.
Зараз ви побачите, як летить снаряд.
See another shell hitting right near them.
Спробуємо зловити політ снаряда. Опа!
Опа!
Ще раз, тут його дуже добре видно. Але уважно треба дивитися. Але мусите побачити, як він летить. Видно було? Осколки. Чух. Ще раз дивимось на політ
Looks like they're
снаряда.
getting a healthy dosing of shrapnel. Although the rounds are not falling right on top of them, the shrapnel is hitting them. You can see that right there.
Пів писка знесло. Моментальний труп. І не один. Один єдиний постріл. Ну, крім заганяючих. Так дестабілізував цю групу.
Also, it appears that one of them has lost their pants. I don't know when he lost the pants, but I think he may have lost them in the event of having a Kadyrovite day, if y'all know what I mean.
Штурмовиків хробачих. Зараз. Бадабу!
And we see that they just keep sitting there and they're just taking it.
Добре. Розбираємо. Нема коли з ними панькатися. З тих 5 2 трупа. Оцього півписка знесло. Оцей, що поранений.
We see one guy is really getting into that whole sleeping, napping thing, you know, he's out.
Троє. А, ще один поранений. Буде вилазити довго. Коротше, з тої всієї бандейки лишилося 2. Плюс 2 в засаді, плюс 1 єбулдей пішов собі як ослик сам по собі. Бабах.
Bye-bye.
Отки приходить.
You know, Matthew, one of those Russians down there, you know, like the guy right here who's crawling around, he's in there saying, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I told my dentist my teeth are going yellow. He told me to wear a brown necktie. Oh, man, it gets worse than that. You know, he's doing that. Oh, one of them just ran off. This guy, he's making a run for it.
Інші побігли. Он, побігли, правильно.
So the rest of them that didn't get shelled, they're all up and on the move. The 5 of them were left, and there was about 9 of them to start with.
Отак, вон, другу сторону, алло. Куди ви побігли? Повертайтеся.
Now moving through the trees.
Торчики. Все. Так, тут все під контролем.
The rest of them are just lying around. This guy, he got left behind. Oh, boo-hoo.
You know, I just thought about it, but I guess if the Russians can outlast the battery on the Mavic, then they're set. If they can last 30 minutes.
Until they bring up the next one. I'm sure when they start running out of a battery, they just say, fly the next one up, and then they just have a rotation out there.
О, 4. Це насправді був єдиний організований ними рух. Всі інші далі будуть дуже нелогічні. Перебігли 2 чи 3. 2. Ось ще 2 пробираються. Оп.
They're all kind of dispersing. They don't really have a plan anymore. They once had like a central kind of command thing going on with someone being the SL. Now it's just descended into chaos. They're all doing their own thing. It's an every man for themselves kind of situation.
В зворотньому напрямку тили крою. Один яму, оце самий мудрий. І один самий командний вперед побіг.
This guy, he's just high-stepping. It looks like he's now fallen over and he's napping. I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I was the squad leader one day, and they said, you don't wear the pants in the squad. They literally took them.
Весь цей час, щоб ви розуміли, вони бігають від власного страху. Бо в декілька сот метрів на кровавому гектарі був нетривалий бій, там ще одна група була, її фільмував другий екіпаж і коригував. А на цих арти не було, але ж вони, оце те, що вони зараз роблять, то вони самоліквідувалися фактично. О, побіг.
See him now scooting. There's someone near a railroad track. Oh, he fell. Oh, he tripped. Sad. Sad. I think he needs to tie his shoes.
А от другий, дивіться уважно. І буц.
Oh, crap, he ran over a toe popper. That's what happened. That's what happened to the last guy. That's why he tripped. I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I was walking down the road the other day. They told me, hey, watch your toes.
Другий, дивіться уважно.
Watch this, man. You watch.
І...
Oh, look. Oh.
Буц. Це є протипіхотна міна.
Oh, you know that must suck to step on one of those.
Oh, you know it must.
Зараз тут подивимося на уповільненому.
He's like, my leg, I mean, my foot, my foot. And we get an instant replay here. Oh, wait a minute. Oh my God. Oh man, I can't even bring that up, but I'm sure y'all saw it.
Поранений, з ладу виведений. Шансів на проведення бою нема.
Mr. Awesome News said no respect at all. That guy didn't get none. He didn't.
Попереду залишився один. Десь я там думку згубив.
He stepped on a Lego set, Alexander. That's what it feels like.
Oh yeah, it feels like that for sure.
Але суті не вважає. Бій від них на кривавому гектарі досить далеко. Тобто, по суті, їм тут нічого не загрожувало. Але власний страх роздробив групу, чим фактично унеможливо.
Like one of the last guys there. He's on the move. The toe popper got the last guy. He looks back. He's like, he's screwed. I'm leaving. He just keeps going. Oh, brutal.
А де ж той перший? Кругом трупи. Дохлятина лежить. А це
You know, Matthew, that Russian guy who got his toe blown off, He's sitting there talking about, I get no respect around here. I told my uncle I wanted to go play baseball. He took me to a minefield. I'm telling you, it's terrible around here. It's real rough. I went to the psychiatrist the other day. I told him, hey, I'm having a little bit of a problem losing my foot. He said, you're psychotic. I said, I don't like that. I want a second opinion. He said, all right, you're ugly too. I'm telling you, it doesn't get easy for me around here.
Тепер він справді як сурікат.
I had to do that because someone asked for it. They said, do it again.
Я сюди прийшов.
I think this is one of the last guys left. Everyone else is like gone the wayside of the Home Alone Christmas tricks in the field.
Робак. Перевіримо те, що я казав. Один списком розбитим повністю, другий ще поки поранений. Але він скойлов. Він за пару годин він застиг. То є точно.
I mean, see, the one wounded guy is still just hanging out, but no one's ever going to come and help him out.
Де третій? Третій, там десь зверху, шкрябає на підстріленій.
And so
Damn, son. Remember to walk with your boys.
remember, don't walk through a minefield. It's not smart. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and we can see that the Wagner guys, they didn't have a great day at the end of it. So we're now going to be moving on to the next clip from Soledar, where we saw the Azov unit once again flipping around to the next thing, and the reconnection was now successful. So I think we may be back on air. I think.
We're back.
Hey, we're back. All right, let's get back to it. Here's some pictures of the Azov at the front again, firing off some mortars, firing off more mortars. Looking pretty cool on their phones, flying drones, and then in the last clip using their drone gun to take down the same drones that the Russians are also flying. And so, I gotta say, pretty nice to know. And so with that, that's the end of that little clip right there. Just once again, nice to see the Azov in the unit, Azov in the area in operation. We're now going to be moving down to the area Pidorodne, where we saw some Russians getting hit by artillery again. Tripler, he said, damn, son, keep your stream steady. I said, hey, keep your wife steady, huh?
Damn.
I think that may have been a little too
That was
harsh.
brutal.
Anyway, so you can see the Russians wandering around.
A little creepy.
Yeah, that was a little creepy. And we can see the Russians still hiding and living in the rubble. And it looks like some of them just got had. It looks like a lot of them are getting had. Ooh, I would hate to be the Russians. Period. I mean, it doesn't even matter about that specific barrage. I just hate to be them. So with that, that's the end of that little clip. And once again, nice to see that the Ukrainians are still obliterating Russians, and that's where the losses are coming from. We're now going to be moving inside of Bakhmut, where we saw a 16-year-old boy was arrested as a collaborator today. Apparently, he had strong pro-Russian views, and had also been trying to communicate information to the Russians through WhatsApp. So it looks as though the guy here who's working for the SBU found the kid. We don't really know how they treat kids who do this kind of stuff in Ukraine, but I'm sure that he'll probably be facing jail time or something similar due to him pretty much committing treason against his own country. So pretty crazy to see, and pretty wild to also think that a 16-year-old kid would get involved. Also, they hardly blurred out his face, like, at all. Like, you can almost see the facial features clearly. But anyways, we're going to be moving on.
What a 16-year-old would possibly be getting in return for doing that.
Nothing. I don't know. Maybe he's like a disillusioned kid or something. You know, there's a lot of them around. But with that, we're now going to be moving on. And then Buddy said, just take his PlayStation. And then Furman Santorelli said, he's 16. He'll grow out of it. Oh, no. This isn't my phase, Mom. I'm trying to express myself over here. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from this. Once again, really weird to see, though. And now it's time for us to move behind the lines, where we saw a BMD-4 get destroyed in the Bakhmut area as well. Oh, we're going to have to mute that, or not. And we can see the BMD getting hit by the 28th Brigade. That's the emblem of the 28th Brigade up there at the top corner. We see the artillery still slamming the Russians in this area. Of course, the BMD still fresh and warm. We can now see them shelling some more Russian positions. And that's the end of the clip. Once again, nice to see 28th Brigade still out there giving out the heat. Yay! And so with that's the end of that clip. But once again, fairly good to see. We're now moving on to our last clip from the center of the front, where we saw more Russian forces getting hit again. We're going to have to mute that one too. You see the artillery landing right onto this compound, or the small house where the Russians are. We can also see some lights on inside the building.
There's some hot lava raining down.
Yeah, that's some hot lava right there. Oh, that one hit right onto the building. A nice shot. The fire.
Oh, lag alert again.
Lag alert again.
The Russians are mad.
Russians be seething tonight. Let's see what we got. Oh, yeah, it's bad. Oh, it's bad. It's real bad. Oh, yeah. I mean, you haven't seen any... Oh, man. I've been doing...
Also, while we're waiting for it to reconnect, Vasily Fedorov said, "This channel is disgusting since you're humming around people dying. Sick."
Sickening.
It's war, my friend. It's war.
It's war, my friend. But anyways, wait, I gotta find them. Obviously, this channel is disgusting since you're humoring around people dying, and they do from both sides. Sick. Hey, man, it's what we do, you know what I mean? I don't see the Ukrainians sitting out there going, "Hey, I feel sorry for that guy." But anyways, it looks like we're back, and we're going to continue the video now, again. So you see that one of the rounds hit greatly right onto the house. I'm losing my wordage. Despicable. Hardwater channel said it like Daffy Duck. Despicable. You now see another artillery shell hitting the outhouse behind the building. And we see the to be continued thing pop up, but hey, this video isn't over. What the hell? Like, it's not even close to being done. Alright, so now we can see part 2, I'm supposing. It looks like there's a whole bunch of Russians. That's actually not a house. That's a bunch of Russian guys just walking around in a field. And it looks like a lot of people went out, Matthew. I've seen a lot of comments tonight of people coming back from buying Wendy's. It looks like we got a lot of people to go to Wendy's.
Oh boy, yeah, I see a lot of people coming back with food. Kaltenberg just left for In-N-Out Burger just a second ago.
Well, my friends, I gotta tell y'all, this is where the magic's happening right here. This is where the hamburger meat's made here on this channel. I'm just kidding. It's not. Now we'll have another bot come through. This is terrible. But we see here the Russian forces wandering around. It looks like they're hugging each other out here. They're getting it. They're getting it on. You know what I mean? They're running away, holding on to each other. Kind of weird. And they're in a big old group. Ludicrous Fox said, "Arby's, we have the meats." Oh man, here they go. They're running off. It's not going to help them though. They're not going to be saved. We see another shell landing near the old house where it's now burning down to the ground. And we see the Russians are actually making a break for it. It looks like they might be able to get out of here and survive. Wow, lucky guys. Now we see one guy who just crawled out of the house. He's still there. Well, you see the small group still running away out there in the distance. The building's still on fire, just in case you all didn't know. Another artillery shell just hit. And boy, are the Russians getting scared. MJ says, stay out of Atlanta tonight. Why? Why?
Are they rioting again over there? I saw some news article saying that somebody in some city was rioting and causing a scene. It might be Atlanta.
Well, I gotta be honest with you. I'd just stay out of Atlanta every night of the week. I wouldn't go in there at all. I wouldn't go into downtown Birmingham much either, like downtown Birmingham. But we can see another wave of Russians has come out of the building, and they're running away too. It's almost like they're getting shelled.
They might live to suffer another day. Oh, somebody just fell down.
Someone
I'm
fell
being
out.
kind of dark tonight about this whole thing.
Yeah, kind of a little bit, you know. I gotta tell you, Matthew, it's terrible, man. That guy that's sitting there in the field right there, I'm telling you, when he was growing up, he got no respect around here. No respect. When I was a kid in the show business, I was poor. Well, I can't read that one, actually. That one was bad, Matthew. That one was real bad. When I was a kid, I got no respect. The time I was kidnapped, and the kidnappers sent my parents a note. They said, we want $5,000, you'll see your kid again. Oh, man, I'm telling you, my wife was never nice. On our first date, I asked her if I could give her a goodnight kiss on the cheek. She bent over. Oh, man, it was terrible. Oh, my wife's ugly, too. Oh, man. She looked like a saint, a Saint Bernard. Oh, man, I'm telling you, life isn't easy for me. But anyways, we can see them running back. They're actually giving a helping hand to the guy who's just laying in the field. Texan Dave said, enough with Rodney, please. Stop.
Texan Dave, let's go.
I'll tell you anything. Stop, please.
Way too corny for me.
Once I do a voice enough, there will be enough people that hate it. Oh. Yikes. Looks like those guys won't be making it out. E3 ECO said agreed. I hate Rodney. Oh, man. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And you can see right there that the Ukrainian National Guard was still obliterating Russians, even right now. With that, we're now going to be moving down into the southern flank where we saw in Klishkivka some more Russian positions getting hit again today. If y'all are ever wondering, well, where did the losses come from? This is where they come from. And actually, that's a duplicate. So apparently I mislocated that video because that was in the southern front. And apparently I just took the small piece of it and I put it up here. So that's not actually from Klishkivka. And so now we're going to be moving on into the general direction of Kreminna, where we saw some Ukrainian forces stopping an assault in that direction today. When you see some soldiers moving forward, we don't know whose those are, and the video keeps lagging at that specific point. Now you see that the electrical substation is now on fire. Artillery is raining down on this area. We see Russians still moving forward. See a decent amount more Russians moving out of the barraged area. It looks like they're trying to get out of there. I don't know if they're getting out of there. Michael said, seems your Rodney impersonation got no respect. It didn't. We can see more Russians entering a building here, and of course the Ukrainians start barraging it immediately. They don't give the Russians any respect. I'm telling you. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But nice to see the Ukrainians are still obliterating Russians down in the Kreminna area. We're now going to be moving on from the Bakhmut front and down into Donetsk, where today in the general area of Pisky, we saw some Russian tanks burn. And burn, baby, burn. Oh, wait a minute. That's also a duplicate. Sorry, everyone. That is a duplicate. So now it's time for us to move on from that, because apparently I mislocated that. Or that was in the location unknowns, one or the other, and then I found it later. But we've already seen it regardless. And so with that, believe it or not, that bombshell, it is now time for us to return back to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 333 of the war. And so, here's the speech. It was a very short one today.
Українці, українки, сьогодні був довгий день. Робочі рішення, міжнародна комунікація, різні питання, які заслуговують на увагу і реакцію. Але сказати зараз хочеться тільки про одне. Не хочеться говорити довго. Сьогодні відбулось прощання з тими, чиї життя унесла катастрофа вертольота в Броварах. Денис Монастирський, його колеги з міністерства, Євген Єнін, Юрій Лукович, Тетяна Шутяк, Михайло Павлушко, Микола Анацький, Андрій Маринченко, хлопці з екіпажу Олександр Василенко, Костянтин Коваленко, Іван Касьянов, жінка та дитина, які вранці просто йшли в дитячий садок. Мама Олена, донька Мілана Пономаренки. Мої співчуття усім рідним, близьким. Боляче про це думати, боляче зараз говорити. Денис був професійною, справжньою людиною, саме таким, яким і варто бути міністру внутрішніх справ. Ми щодня втрачаємо людей, про яких будемо завжди згадувати і шкодувати, що не повернеш. Українців, патріотів, людей професійних і просто вірних собі і державі не повернеш. Я хотів би, щоб ми всі сьогодні це відчули. Відчули, скільки життів, скільки світлих людей забирає воєнний час. Я хотів би, щоб ми всі сьогодні вшанували їхню пам'ять. Світла пам'ять усім, чиї життя забрала ця війна. Світла пам'ять усім, хто віддав своє життя за Україну. Ми робимо все, щоб вигнати цю війну з нашої землі. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and that wraps up our day 333 news summary. We're about to be moving into the question segment, but for all intents and purposes, if you were just here for the news, the stream is over for you. So make sure to click the subscribe button, make sure to hit the like button, also comment on this thing once it becomes a video, will you? And also, thank you so much once again for watching, because it means a lot to me that a whole load of people always join the stream every single night to hear the last 24 hours of news. And so with that, thank you all so much once again, and we're about to be moving into the question segment where we're going to address all the polls, all of the super chats that have been sent in, and also as many live chats as we can. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so for the final question segment, we have 3 more polls to address, and the first one says, is McDonald's good? 59% said no, 41% said yes. So, not surprising, a lot of people don't think it's good. The only thing, in my opinion, McDonald's is really good at is being in the right place at the right time when you're usually hungry. But it's never really an option you want to go with. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I've got to tell you, man, so without a Ronnie right there make a joke about McDonald's, but I don't know if people like him enough anymore or not to have me doing it. But I would say McDonald's sucks. I don't like McDonald's at all. Maybe it's better overseas. A lot of people say it is, but not here in America. Not at the prices they're at, and not the food quality they're at. You'd have to catch me dead before you caught me eating at McDonald's, you know what I mean? But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, the second poll says, do you believe that American General Mark Milley provides accurate assessments of the war? It looks like 33% said no, he's routinely wrong. 26% said unsure, 25% said yes, he's usually accurate, and 16% said I have no opinion on USA military leaders. Now for me, I think that he's gotten politicized, the fella is, and that's kind of sort of, I guess, took away some of his credibility in my eyes. But also he is routinely wrong, it seems. But Enforcer, what say you?
I know, of course, due to our channel's apolitical nature and us not really being able to talk about political matters, I can't really talk about him as a political figure. However, I can state things that he has done that's been very clear. For example, he's been wrong multiple times throughout this war, and we can go back and try and find those instances and quote him on what he said, and then show how wrong he was, because almost all the time he's incredibly wrong. Not only that, the guy just says whatever comes to his mind. He doesn't really have a lot of backing to it. He doesn't really have a lot of information behind it. And also, I guess you could say he's kind of a fair weather sailor. He just goes whichever direction the wind's blowing. So if it's blowing in one direction, he's heading that way. If it's blowing in the other direction, he's going the other way. It just really depends. So not really a big fan of him. And also another thing that he's done is that he is, in both instances, both in the prior administration in the government and the current one, he has gone against both of their wishes and saying whatever he wants. And I'm not really all for the idea of having someone who doesn't stick to their morals. I think it's very important that someone sticks to what they believe, but in both instances, he just went against the sitting administration, whether it be the prior one or this one, just because he wanted to, and that's a very dangerous thing to have in a general, is just someone who is in one of the highest positions that there can be in the military, and then they just do whatever they want, regardless of what the commander-in-chief wishes to be had. That's how the governmental structure works, and that is, in my opinion, just dangerous to have someone like him around, because he doesn't really do or listen to anything that anyone says, and he also doesn't work off of any kind of facts. So with that, I hope that does address what I think of him. Because if I had become president and he started doing what he was doing in this current administration and the last one, I would have him removed and replaced, because you can't have someone like that around. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the third poll says France freezes bank accounts of French branch of Russian state broadcaster RT. What are your thoughts? Looks like 90%, which is a humongous majority, say great news and enforce sanctions. 5% said unsure. 4% said Did they actually have legal grounds to do so? And 2% said nah, that isn't right. Now, I think to say it isn't right is a little bit strange, because RT is a proponent of Russia's propaganda around the world. So I say enforce the sanctions and take their money. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would certainly enforce the sanctions. Russia Today is literally a Russian state-sponsored media platform, and all they do is just try and sow dissent amongst the ranks of the West and Western society. If I go to Russia Today, let's read some of the interesting articles they have at the moment. Let's see here. World moving closer to irreversible disaster. Taiwan bloodbath might suit U.S. decision makers just fine, because the U.S. is a sick group of people. RT France to close after accounts frozen. Oh, boo-hoo. Does China's population decline really matter? Well, yeah. Let's see here. I can't cover that.
Oh, look, there's Mark Milley right over there.
Yeah, look, fighting Russia is very, very difficult for Ukraine. Top U.S. general. I would now. I don't know if he said that. We'll have to take that with a grain of salt, considering it comes from Russia Today. So I'll have to find out. Anyways, iconic venue urged to drop facial recognition enemies list. China stocks up on Russian gold. Oh boy, good news for Russia, right? Ex-Soviet state considers joining larger alliance. Oh, good lord, thank you, Walter.
Dang.
Let's see. Contract terminate. Okay, wait, hang on. UK losing status of haven for super rich, study finds. NATO nation finds Russian sailor over uniforms. Djokovic overcomes injury concerns to progress in Australia. Putin considers Erdogan a real man. Why Russia maintains friendly relations with one of NATO's key members. That's the Turkey doing Turkey thing, you know what I mean? Japan hit by a wave of corporate bankruptcies. We can't cover that one. That was political in nature. German intelligence alarmed over Ukrainian losses. Where? That's my thing. They just say anything that's anti-Western in the end. And also, U.S. urges Ukraine not to fixate on defending key city. When? When did we say that? We have not said that.
It just says dash media.
Yeah, it's just dash media. Let's see. I don't even know what that's about. Sex cult leader gets 60 years in prison. What are some of these news articles anyways? Let's see here. U.S. Navy SEAL killed in Ukraine. U.S. pulling military gear from Korea for Ukraine. I thought the Russians were doing that. I thought they were pulling it from North Korea. Now they're going to try and blame us for doing that with South Korea? That's stupid. That doesn't even make any sense. Kamikaze drones strike U.S. base. No German-made tanks for Ukraine yet. Berlin. Just Berlin. You know, it's just a whole city came together for once. 1.3 million of them just said, no tanks. That was it. Like, it was just, you could hear it for dozens of miles. You were just in the German wilderness, and you just heard, no, tanks. You're like, oh, okay. I guess that's happening. Russia blasts USS asset exportation scheme. UK finds loophole to buy Russian oil because they're so desperate for oil. Moscow outlet outlines what West can do to help resolve Ukraine crisis. No, they didn't. They said they could surrender and give up everything, and that's their only solution. Switzerland threatens to seize Russian assets. It looks like the Russians are actually giving better fiddle to the Swiss than the West give them. Let's see. Western tanks won't be game changer in Ukraine. Like every other Western piece of equipment hasn't been a game changer already. And you can see here, the articles are pretty silly. And also, the Russians always love to say, like this right here, it won't be a game changer, but how come they have been? You know, like the Javelin was a game changer in the earlier part of the war. The M777 and the HIMARS have been too. So why in the world would the tanks also not be a game changer? You know, all of this stuff.
Oh, because it won't change the game because Russia's still going to get steamrolled like they've been getting steamrolled.
Oh, that's a good one, Matthew. That's actually a pretty good one. Hey, someone give this guy a promotion over here. But anyways, yeah, Russia today is just full of crap. That's why, you know, I think they should be sanctioned because this is the kind of stuff they're spreading. It's just straight up BS for the most part. So, with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. Let's get on into the next one.
And that's it. So with that being said, we're moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have that $50 donation from Walter A. Lakota Jr. Very generous, and thank you so much, Walter. He says, Aloha, the Enforcer Matt, and the LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. Did you cover the news about the Russian spy ship off of Hawaii? I've been inactive for a few days, and I'm getting ready to go back to the USNS Loyal. It seems something is up with the AFU.
And thank you so much for the support, Walter. And also, something is up. They're conducting a massive buildup in the Zaporizhia area. And also, we did hear about the spy ship. It's just that we couldn't really find any independent videos to show of it beyond one I saw from CNN, so we didn't include it. And also, we couldn't really verify whether it was in international waters or not. It most likely was. In my opinion, that's not that big of a deal for it to just be sailing around in international waters. Every once in a while, there's a Russian submarine that's spotted in the Gulf of Mexico, and as long as it's not within, I guess you could say, sovereign waters of the U.S. or coastal waters, it's not that big of a deal to me. So it didn't get reported for those reasons. Also, it's good to have you back. We did notice that you were absentee for a little bit, but of course, as long as the Lee Spring Army or our LSN OG Bosun is here, that is good. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well, because, of course, you've been around forever, and that was a pretty good question. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, Walter, and helping this channel to keep on running, because you've been around for quite a while. I think probably ever since this channel was beginning to cover the Ukraine war. I think you may be an old guard, and I've got to thank you so much once again for helping with the continued support, because without your support and viewers like you, this channel wouldn't have been possible from the start. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support. And I think the next one is also Walter Lakota's.
Yes, it is. It is also Walter A. Lakota Jr.'s Super Chat, and it's a $100 donation this time.
Holy moly!
So Walter says, me again. The Rodney Dangerfield impression with videos is spot on. And did you guys answer my Super Chat? If did, I'll go back and listen later. Hawaii fun fact. By Kenoa, windward side, on the H3 highway is an old Omega station with the famous Stairway to Heaven.
And I thank you so much for the support. And let's see where that is. So here we go. That town, the windward side of the H3 highway. The windward side. What side is that? I'm trying to figure that out.
The side the wind goes to.
Side the wind goes to. The wham, boy! So let's see here. The Omega station. So H3 Omega station. H3
highway.
Here we go. I think I found it. I think I found a picture of it. You know what I mean? Right there. So wait a minute, it's on like the mountain. So let's see if we can find it around there. It's not that. Might be that. I think that's actually it. Let's see if we can drop down here. Google? Come on, work for me. I don't think this is it. That doesn't look the same. Honolulu.
Get some pixels, please.
Pixels,
oh, yes, there we
sir.
go.
They said Honolulu sign of the H3. So let's go over here. And let's move up the hill. Oh, helipad. Cool. Let's move up the hill. Boom, 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 boom. Honey creeper. And that's what you say when you've got a sweet pedo following you as a honey creeper. But let's see here. I can't find it. Wait a minute, hang on. Is it the U.S. Navy radio station? Haiku? Let me read you a haiku. Let's see here. Maybe that's it. I don't think it is. Probably not. But we got some shirtless guy here. Hey, what's up with this shirtless guy here and this woman here? What's going on here? Interesting, to say the least. To say the least. I can't find this thing, though. I cannot find this thing. Also, Davis Campbell got a laugh out of the honey creeper thing. Anyways, sadly, I cannot find it. I will look for it, though, and I will see if I can find it. It's near the H3 highway, so it's not near the tunnel, most likely. Man, it's not there either. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm at a complete loss right now as to where this thing would be, because the H3 highway is not that big. It only goes from Honolulu to the other side of the island, which is just a few miles, but I can't find this thing. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the that part of the super chat fairly well. And to get to the first part, the Rodney Dangerfield impression with videos is spot on. I thank you so much for that. Some people are not liking Rodney because apparently they just don't like Rodney. I kind of found him funny. I think he's a funny guy back when he used to do comedy, you know, before he died and everything. And if I could, Walter, because of the massive support, let me entertain you with a couple of jokes that I've been Googling on my phone. Okay, so we're going to scroll to the top. Matthew's rolling his eyes because he's been hearing it for a good while. I'll tell you, my wife and I, we don't think alike. She donates her money to the homeless. I donate my money to the topless. One night I came home, I figured, let my wife come on, I'll play it cool. Let her make her first move. She went to Florida. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I asked my old man if I could go ice skating on the lake. He told me, wait till it gets warmer. Oh, man, and it got worse from there. My doctor told me to watch my drinking. Now I drink in front of a mirror. I drink too much. Way too much. My doctor drew blood and he ran a tab. Oh, man, I've got a whole bunch of problems. It doesn't get easy for me. When I was born, the doctor came out of the waiting room and he said to my father, I'm very sorry. We did everything we could, but he pulled through. Oh, man, I come from a stupid family, a real stupid family. During the Civil War, my great-uncle fought for the West. Oh, man, and it got worse than that. My father was real stupid, too. He worked in a bank, and they called him stealing pens. Oh, what a stupid guy, a real stupid guy. And it got worse. My mother had morning sickness after I was born. It was a bad family, real bad family. My mother never breastfed me. She told me she only liked me as a friend. Oh, man, it was just tough for me. I never had it easy in life, never had it easy. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I have a heaviness over me, a big, giant, burdensome heaviness. And sometimes I talk to it and I go, hi, heaviness. And it goes, oh, you're going to get it real good today. Oh. But anyways, I gotta thank you so much for the support, Walter, and I hope you enjoyed that, because I literally just read that off of like a script, and hopefully it sounded kind of organic and kind of good, and then Linda said, I don't like the accent too much. Oh, come on. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Walter, and I hope you enjoyed that one fairly through. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support, the massive amount of support, and helping us to keep this thing going, because if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be possible, and I hope you enjoyed that fairly well. And in comes, I know it will be coming in the live chat soon, Matthew, I thought this was the Ukraine war question in the question
Yeah.
segment. I know it's coming. But with that,
where's the news?
Yeah, whereas, listen, if someone asked that again during the question segment, we are going to drop y'all off with a honey creeper, all right?
Oh, boy.
But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support, Walter.
All right, and up next, we have another one from Walter A. Lakota Jr.
Oh, we
this
were
time he puts
right.
in a $20 donation. He says, me again. You were looking at it the first time.
Oh, man, it was right here. This is it. this is it right here. You know, there's the cue for the, oh, it was right there. And I'm going to go, yeah. And then we're going to drop down and look at it again. And we're going to go, oh, that's pretty cool. It's like in the middle of the wilderness or something. That's weird how the mountains in Hawaii are just so jagged like that. You can't even climb them. They're almost vertical.
This poor thing's been through the ringer right here.
Yeah, man. Like the whole skull thing and all the graffiti. Man.
I know that it takes probably some skill to do graffiti, but I just hate to see that junk all over buildings. Like, it just drives me bonkers.
This man is zooted down here. Whoever drew this guy, this guy had the 50 milligram edible. But anyways, this is pretty cool. Also, I'm just completely blown away with what the mountains look like, and also that the clouds going through them, so it just looks like the picture didn't render properly. But still, this is pretty neat, and it's also kind of a big building. But with that, thank you so much once again, Walter, for the support. You didn't even have to throw that one in. And, excuse me, sorry. It's also kind of crazy new. I landed on it right the first time, and then I went on a search to find it when I had already found it. I guess, Matthew, in a way, it's not really the search for the building that was important. It was the search for the friends that we made along the way that was, in the end,
I knew you were about to say that.
But with that, thank you once again, Walter. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and I hope we took a good look at that building. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the third super chat of the night, Walter, and helping this thing to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $25 super chat from Mech Tactical, who says, sorry, but sliding cider is a strain of legal grass. Makes rabbit holes deeper. +2 on top of the previous question. Did the historian background influence the purchase of the Thompson, and where the heck is the video?
And thank you so much, Bruce. So the video's coming. The video's coming. It's not going to be soon, because we have plans, big plans, so you know, it's not going to be. It's going to be after February. I'll say that. The video will be filmed here soon, though, because we, you know, I'm not going to get into the exact behind the scenes because then it'll kind of cue y'all in on other things. But it has a little bit to do with Project Rabbit Hole, Project Rabbit Hole. So we'll be looking into that. Also, to answer the question about the Tommy gun, yes, my historical background was the reason why I got that thing. I've got to say, it's really heavy. I didn't think a Tommy gun would be that heavy. It's like I think 27 pounds unloaded, with the drum mag on it, which is way heavier than I thought it would be. And now I understand why people are into lightweight guns, because that thing is just so heavy that it's really cumbersome and hard to use. It's really hard to aim as well, because it's just that heavy. And when you load it, it's supposed to weigh like 32 pounds, I think, or 33. And then you're just literally hunking up a block of lead to your face to try and shoot it. But we'll shoot it on video and we'll review it. We'll actually be shooting it in this one, instead of just, you know, kind of talking about it. Sorry, everyone. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But it kind of did, because I'm a big history person. I'm really big into history, really love history, and modern stuff's neat, but also I just like old stuff because, you know, I'm really interested in the history. I'm really into it. So if I can, why not get old cool stuff? So that's why I also have a Krag Jorgensen, or as some people call it, a Krag Jorgensen. I think it's a Jorgensen. I believe the J in Norse is pronounced as a Jorgensen. So that's what it's supposed to be called. And then I also have a Remington 1903 made in 1942, but it's based off of the Springfield pattern. And I have a side-by-side shotgun and also a Brown Bess. So all in all, I have a pretty decent little collection of neat-looking guns. And I think I have a black powder percussion cap Dragoon revolver, if I remember the classification of that one correctly. Or it's a Navy revolver, one or the other. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, Mech Tactical. And I thank you so much once again for the support. If it wasn't for viewers like you, this channel couldn't run. You know what I mean? And so I hope that does answer the question. And I thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running, so that way we can keep on answering very interesting questions like that. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right. And real quick, we have a poll to go over. What do you think of the Rodney Dangerfield impression? It looks like 56% said I like it, and 44% said no more, please. So surprisingly, pretty evenly split.
Oh, man. Well, I knew that was coming. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. So up next, we have a super chat from Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation and says, no question from here. Please pick a translation from the chat if someone's decoded the Morse yet.
And thank you so much for the support. And unfortunately, you don't have a question for me to address much, but thank you so much once again for helping this thing to keep on running. And thank you so much once again for the support. And so with that, do we have the Morse code?
We do have the Morse, and let's see here. The Morse goes to JP's RCs, Mark Hodges, CFA, WFTU, and also Rumpelstiltskin. They say the Morse code says Germany needs to give the Leopard 2 tanks soon.
And thank you so much once again for the support. And I think... Oh, wait a minute, hang on. I'm sorry. I got that all confused because I'm trying to read the live chat. But you did get it correct. That is the message. And hopefully the Germans will send the Leopard 2 soon, because that is one of the only tanks that the Ukrainians could actually field properly. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for deciphering that Morse code message. And we got to it really, really early tonight. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support and allowing us to get to that Morse code message really early on in the night. That's the first time anyone's ever asked for us to get to the Morse code message instead of a live chat. So really cool. And so with that, on to the next one. But thank you once again for being a Lee Spring Army soldier and helping us to keep this thing running.
Indeed. And let's see here. Getting to the Morse hour really kind of threw me off a little bit, but thank you, Panama, for the support. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Boxfish, who says, free the leopards and greetings from Hamburg. So they're in Germany.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and hello to the Hamburg. Let's go to Hamburg and let's take a look. Of course, fairly big port infrastructure here. It's like half the city of Hamburg is a giant port, which is really cool to look at, actually. That is really bizarre. They have a little bit of everything here in Hamburg for a port. But now, it's time for us to go to the Rathaus. This is where the rats live in every German town. They have like a little house for themselves. And they build fairly nice ones.
Wait a minute, this is the government building?
Yes.
And they call it the Rat House?
Yes. Actually, it's more like a community center, but that's what they're called in Germany as a Rathaus. But it's very nice.
Yeah, it is pretty nice, actually, for a rat house.
Man, yeah, what do you call a German politician? A rat. Oh, man, the buildings outside of there, though, I'm not really a big fan of. I love the rat house, though. It's a very beautiful building. And also, let's take a look at the street view right over here. Wow, they actually have street view in Hamburg. I just realized. Not a bad-looking town at all. The streets are really nicely paved. Not a lot of graffiti, which is very interesting to see. Germans are known for graffiti. And just a really clean town. Also, for it to be a port city, it looks very well off, at least compared to an American town. And so, with that, thank you so much once again for support, helping this channel to keep on running, and being one of our Lee Spring Army soldiers all the way from Hamburg, Germany. Really neat. I'm really, really blown away that we have a viewer from Hamburg. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on running.
I see a lot of folks saying that Matt would approve. I guess they're talking about, like, the street layout. Go back in and let me see that again.
The rat house or the street?
I think they're talking about, like, the streets and the layout of the place. Nah, I wouldn't approve of this one. It looks chaotic.
I don't think it looks that bad, in comparison to most European towns. Like, like go to Bremerhaven, look at this thing. Oh, they don't even have street view. Let me go to France instead.
Man.
We'll go to Calais. Someone's going to say it's Pas de Calais. I don't know, man. Anyways.
Oh, no graffiti is what they were talking about. Yeah, that's true. I don't like seeing graffiti.
Oh, Matthew doesn't like graffiti. I think you'll know that. But with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support and being from Hamburg, Germany.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Trister1, who says, thanks, Enforcers. And thank you, Trister. We appreciate it.
And thank you, Trister. I thank you so much. We appreciate the support. It helps this channel to keep on running. And without viewers like you, Trister, and you threw in a massive amount of support last night, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so thank you once again for all the support you sent in last night and all the support you sent in tonight, because it does help us to keep this thing going. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the kind words and also the support.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Superbunker 9000, who's already left for the night, sadly, but NAFO was here. Super Bonker says, coffee and hot chocolate fun. And chat question, please. And thank you for excellent news update. Slava Ukraine, LSA, LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, Super Bonker, and helping this thing to keep on running. Because you are a NAFO member and also Elite Spring Army soldier. You have like dual soldieryship in a way. And that's kind of cool. And also, thank you so much for always being a huge viewer of this channel, a huge fan, because it does mean a lot to us that we have people who always come back to watch this channel and also help us to support it, to keep it running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, but thank you.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Marion Deemert, who does not leave a comment. But Marion, thank you very much for the support once again for another night, and we do appreciate it very much. So, Enforcer, what do you have to say about this support?
I gotta thank you so much, Marion, because if it wasn't for viewers like you, although you didn't leave a comment, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing going. And I always wish that people leave comments so that way I can make sure to address the support and really thank y'all for it. But there wasn't any. So with that, thank you once again, Marion. It does mean a lot still, and it helps us keep this thing rolling, and that means a great deal to, of course, us and all of y'all. And so with that, thank you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Panama Floyd, who says, at T. Rogers, in the air and over the hills and far away, they're smart. At Enforcer Matt. Wait a minute, did I accidentally like copy and paste somebody else's onto this too? I don't know what the hell is happening with that, but well, that's really got me messed up. Let's see here. Enforcer Matt, take a question from the chat, and Mydar is the man, Igor.
And thank you so much for the support. We will get one from the live chat, and Mydar is the man, Igor. And so with that, let's get the live chat.
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to C-Fay, who says, if RT was in the USA, would it be right to sanction them?
Yes, I think it would be. Well, kind of in a way in the United States you can't because of the whole free, well, the whole free speech thing. It's a core American right, so we can't really put someone down for exercising free speech because although they're from Russia, they still have protected rights in the United States to have free speech. So I don't really think we could sanction them as a nation, as a government, but private companies like YouTube have already sanctioned Russia today, and they don't allow them to be monetized on YouTube. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And the way I said the whole free speech thing, I made it sound like that was actually a detriment, but that's actually a huge positive in the United States to say you can say really anything that comes to mind, but it's a double-edged sword because while you can say the things you like, people can say the direct opposite of the things you don't like. But, you know, that's just what free speech comes with. That's the territory of it. But with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also on top of that, I don't think we can just like seize things in the USA like they can in Europe. I think it's a little different with the laws and stuff like that. Now, you'd have to go through a really lengthy process to get it. But anyways, up next, we have a $10 super chat from Miss Disa, who says, Enforcer, did you see the Science Museum in Lviv exhibit? Lets you sink the Moskva. Love the clever Ukrainians.
Let's see, the Science Museum, where would that be? The Lviv.
In Lviv.
Yeah, the Lviv Science Museum.
That's a hell of a science exhibit.
Yeah, that's a crazy one. So the House of Scientists, I'm guessing this might be it. It doesn't really look like there's a lot of exhibits in here. It's a really beautiful building, though. Wow, that's really nice. Let's see here. Let me go to the...
That's definitely not a rat house.
Yeah, that's definitely not a rat house. I mean, dang. The House of Scientists. There's the House of Scientists. Let's just go pull up the Science Museum Lviv. National Museum of National... I think that's it. Maybe this is it. I haven't seen it, and it looks like we're not going to be able to find it on Google, but I will take your word for it, and that is a pretty cool exhibit. And I would like to go there and actually try out that little exhibit, because that might be fun. I don't know. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that cool little tidbit with us. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling.
And up next, we have another super chat from Panama Floyd, who puts in another $20 donation and says, "I'm back. Turns out that the guy that got killed may have shot at a cop first. Atlanta's doing wait a minute, let's see here.
Ooh, I don't.
Wait, I'm trying to see if it's anything political. Let's see. Man, I don't think I can read that one off, Panama, but I can't read it off, and sadly I can't comment on it either, I don't think.
No. We can't, I hate to say it, Panama. I know that this is the thing y'all are going over in Atlanta, but we can't really comment on it much because any comment on it would pretty much end up being political, whether it was in condemnation or support of it. So we can't really make any comment on it either way, because that will probably be one of the quickest ways we get thrown into one political camp or the other. So I do thank you for the support, though, and hopefully things end up being okay in Atlanta in the long term. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, let's get a question from the live chat.
All right, so the question from the live chat is going to go to Lance is gone. He says, "Enforcer, is Germany the weakest nation in Europe when it comes to political will?"
Germany? Weakest? I would say maybe. It's kind of weird because usually a strong economic country, an economically strong country, is usually a diplomatically and politically strong country, but that's not the case with the Germans because they kind of waffle a decent bit on a lot of things. The one thing they do not waffle on, however, is exercising power in the European Union. They're one of the larger deciding members of that group. But in terms of exterior politics and diplomacy extending beyond the European Union and their own national borders, they really get cold feet. They don't really do much. So in a way, yeah, I would say they're probably one of the weaker ones, because you see a lot of other countries exercising their own will. The British are no longer a part of the European Union, but they exercise their will heavily. The French and the Polish do as well. The Italians and the Spanish also. But the Germans, not so much. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on running and sponsoring that live chat, Panama Floyd. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one we have is from Honeybee Care, who puts in a $10 donation and says, "For the beer fund, Germany has become Putler's greatest ally," and grab a live chat question.
And thank you so much for the support. And I wouldn't say that Germany has become Putin's biggest ally. It's just that they're cold-footed in terms of what they do as far as foreign diplomacy. I never think it's a good idea when the Germans, or anyone for that matter, starts to slow down on their support to immediately start condemning them and trying to chew their throats off or anything, because then that only will make them double down and making sure that they do not give support, because no one's even on their side anymore anyways. What we want to do is we want to make it clear that we're not really pleased with the route that the Germans are taking, but we're not going to sit there and start condemning them for it. We always want to just try and keep, I guess you could say, the idea of, we're not mad at you, we're just disappointed kind of mindset, and eventually encourage them to send the Leopard 2s, whether we send in Abrams or not. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And let's get a question from the live chat.
And the question from the live chat is going to go to Frank K, who says, "I've read of possible T-14 Armada going to Ukraine. Could it actually happen?"
It could. It's just that there's so few T-14 Armadas, there's around 15 of them, that they'll probably be used for propaganda purposes, probably like the BMPT Terminator, or they'll be destroyed fairly quickly and they'll lose half of their prototype tanks in a couple of months' time, much like they have with the T-90M. Either way, it is a true story, though, according to the British Ministry of Defense, because they have satellite pictures proving that they are now at training grounds undergoing some kind of a training one way or the other. So with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And also, Paddington said a T-14 broke down on parade. That was actually apparently a handbrake that was applied, and they didn't know how to take the handbrake off, so the T-14 got stuck during a rehearsal, and they couldn't move it because the handbrake was on. that tells you how stupid Russians are, considering that they couldn't even familiarize themselves with where the handbrake is in that tank, and it looks fairly simple. Whenever they show the inside of it, it almost looks like they're driving a car. But with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Secular Sakai, who says, everyone, please contact your country's representatives and implore them to send tanks, jets, and longer-range artillery. Let's get Ukraine what it needs today, not next year, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. And I would completely agree with you that contacting your representatives is incredibly important in ensuring that the support continues. Just write a letter to your elected representatives wherever you are in the world, whether it be the United States, a foreign country, and let them know that you do agree with sending support to Ukraine and that the support should continue. And if you live in an area where your representative or your elected official doesn't really believe in supporting Ukraine, still write them those letters, because it may show them that people might not vote for them the next time an election cycle comes up if they don't support Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, so that way we can keep telling people stuff like that. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And also, shout out to Terrence Custer for putting in a $10 super chat, but with no comments, sadly. But Terrence, thank you very much for that support once again, and thank you for being a longtime viewer too. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Marichka, who says, I heard a U.S. general saying that Russia breaking apart is dangerous because of the nukes having new owners. Same fears resulted in denuking Ukraine. How long will it take to denuke the correct country?
That's a great question. However, I think that general may be looking at things a little backwards, because while they may have new owners, no one in Russia will be able to afford the prohibitive cost of maintaining all of these nuclear weapons. If each breakaway part of Russia, if it's just for some reason fractured like a large pane of glass, got several hundred or 1,000 nukes each, there is no way for them to afford to maintain those. So they would really have no option but to give them up and allow them to be disarmed, much like Ukraine did. It wasn't that Ukraine believed the West and that they were going to protect and support them and the Russians as well. It's that they couldn't financially afford to keep them around, and also massive sanctions would have been imposed by everyone worldwide if they had kept them. So for those two reasons, they gave them up. The same economic pressures would be on a breakaway country in Russia if they got nuclear weapons, and we could eventually denuclearize those parts of Russia through that exact same process. In fact, if Russia fractured into multiple pieces, the entirety of what used to be the former Russian Federation may be denuclearized, because no single part of Russia as a whole can maintain that many nuclear weapons. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support. And a really interesting question right there. That was a really good one, and we've never had that one before. And so with that, we are on to the next. Also, Sinjib said, selling to hostile nations. That is somewhat difficult to do as well, because those are pretty high-end events, pretty high-end ordeals, and it's very difficult to just sell nuclear weapons worldwide. Otherwise, the North Koreans could do it, and we've seen that they have never been able to sell nuclear weapons to anyone, because we still keep very tight tabs on them, as well as every other foreign country, although they may be slightly sympathetic to them. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Vance Hicks, who says, Enforcer, when this war ends, and it will, do you think we will get European support in rebuilding Ukraine, or will it just be on the U.S.?
And I thank you for the support, and that's a really good question. I think it will largely fall on the United States, because the bulk of any funding in the West falls upon the United States of America, considering that we're the key member of our Western alliances. In fact, we pretty much created the Western alliances that we see today, so we are pretty much fitted with the bill. Some people don't like that idea. Some people say it is our job. In my opinion, it kind of is our job. If we want to be the people at the center of attention, running everything in the Western sphere, we have to be the ones to shell out all of the money. Otherwise, there's no reason that we are the center of the Western sphere. So it will largely fall on us, but I'm sure that a decent amount of European countries will step up to the plate and help to support as well. It just won't be as much as the United States can. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I think that it's definitely a certainty that countries will help to help the Ukrainians to rebuild and pay for it. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Rob Bertram, who says, "Did you know that Enforcer Matt has his own YouTube channel and he only needs 71 new subscribers to hit 1,000?" And also, thank you, Rob. That is the second night he's plugged the channel in the super chat, and I appreciate it a whole bunch. And I did check it before I started the stream tonight, and it does look like I'm up to like 920 something subscribers, which is crazy because it went from, I think, 450 to basically 900 overnight. So also, I appreciate everyone subscribing to it because that really got me excited to see it. And also, hitting 1,000, that's like a big milestone, by the way. That'll force me to make another video really soon. But thank you, Rob. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, Rob. And if y'all want to go over there and subscribe to Matthew's channel, it does exist. Just type in Enforcer Matt. It's the exact same account he's using here on this channel. And make sure to subscribe. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this team to keep running. Also, he is, I think, currently at, let me refresh real quick. He's at 935 subscribers. So he's only about 65 away, I think. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Bradley Barrows, who says, "Romanesque Revival is my favorite architecture. Check out Old Central High School of Duluth, Minnesota."
Let's see here. Old Central High School of Duluth, Minnesota. And let's go there, and let's take a look at it. Oh, dang, wow, this is a really impressive school. Do people still go to school in this building? I get your soul eaten in that building at night.
Dang.
That looks creepy, but still, this building is really over the top. Way too nice. I mean, to think that this used to be a high school is insane. Because, hell, I did not go to a high school that looked like this. My high school looked a lot worse. But are there any pictures of the inside, or is that just not allowed around here? Apparently, it's not allowed around here in Duluth, Minnesota. You can't get pictures inside of a high school. Duluth Public Schools official site. Yeah, no pictures of the inside of this thing. But it is really impressive. And also, I'm really a really big fan of Second French Empire architecture, I believe it is. And yeah, here we go. Actually, yeah, it's in a certain way, though. Not in, like, the houses like this. I'm not a big fan of Second Empire architecture like that. I'm a big fan of the buildings like, I forgot what this is. I think it's some kind of an arsenal or something like that that's right by the White House, or it's a Chateau de something. But it's in the Second French Empire architectural style. I think it's pretty good. I think it looks pretty nice. Also, Roman Revival architecture is really good as well. And Baroque is, in a way, well, Baroque original architecture and Baroque Revival. All of it looks really good. And I've got to say, I'm a huge fan of classic architectural styles. Not a big fan of modern architecture because it doesn't really have much soul. Especially, I think, the worst architectural style ever, which is brutalist architecture. This stuff is just hideous. Like, it looks soulless. It doesn't look good at all. And I don't know how people in mass were such a big fan of this that they actually invested money to have buildings built that looked like this or that, because it looks dystopian. It looks like you're living in like a hell at that point. Also, here's I believe this is that's not the FBI building. The FBI building in Washington, D.C., the J. Edgar Hoover building, also looks like it was a brutal style. In this one right here, oh man, I don't like it at all. Also, these are even worse. Like, what is this? Like, what is this supposed to be?
It looks brutal.
Oh yeah, it's brutal. Oh, it's brutal. It's brutal to the eyes. It's brutal everywhere. And then the concrete never ages well, so you always like get the slummy look out of brutalist style buildings after about 30 years, because it's just terrible. But with that, I hope that does address the support fairly well. Thank you so much for it. And I would have to agree with you. It's a very nice looking architectural style, and I'm not a big fan of the modern stuff. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $6 super chat from Kikari Firehawk, who says, "Salutations from a little-known listening post in Ten Boer, Netherlands."
And thank you so much for the support. And he's all the way in the Netherlands, which I almost went to New Zealand there. So what is it? How's it spelled again?
It's Ten Boer, like Boer.
Ten Boer in the Netherlands. So let's see here. What do we got around this small town? There's a listening post here. But where? I can't find it. Maybe that's it?
It's a little known too, so
It's
you
a
might
little-
not be able to find it.
It's a little known. Maybe it's outside of the city limits of the small town. There's 10 Post. Is that it? Maybe not. So let's go down here. Let's just drop down and look at this town, though. Let's see what it looks like. This town, though. Really nice town. It's actually very nice, I guess, to be in the Dutch countryside. I thought it would look ois. I thought it'd be disconnected from, like, you know, modern amenities or something for some reason. But it's really, really clean. It's really modern looking, too. It looks better than American rural towns. Really blowing me away here. And also,
I gotta say, it looks you know, refreshing to see, like, compared to our towns, but at the same time, it looks kind of bleak a little bit.
it kind of looks like Lego.
Yeah, it does. It does actually.
Yeah, it looks just like Lego. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are going to be moving on to the next one. But best of luck to you and the listening post near Tin Boer, and hopefully you'll do a good amount of listening. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And I was just told by everybody in the live chat that I'm at 971 subs. So let's see, somebody did the math for me. Rob Bertram said 29 more. So only need 29 more to get to 1,000. That's crazy. I was only at 400 yesterday. That's wild. But thank y'all very much. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says, are you boys ready for tax time? You have tons of write-offs working from home. Wagner boss plans on ousting Putin. You heard it here first. And Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. Tax season is right around the corner, and we've got to get on that. Oh, my Lord!
Oh, goodness.
Holy moly! Good God. Enforcer for president. Jesus! We'll get to that in a minute. But I thank you so much. Now, to answer the question we have in front of us right now. Tax season is around the corner. There should be a decent amount of write-offs for me. Suck it to me, but there should be a decent amount of tax write-offs for me because I have put thousands of dollars into fundraisers. I think at this point like $5,200 worth or even more. I'd have to go back and look at all the receipts, but it's been a lot. It's been a load of them, so I know that I've got those. And then there's a whole bunch of equipment that we've gotten for things, so I know that that's going to be a write-off. There's a lot
Like
of
project funding, actually, you know, the secret funding.
Yeah, that black book, black project funding stuff. When we come to think of it, I have probably spent, in between the donations to the fundraisers and also everything keeping this thing running behind the scenes, well over $10,000 total. That will be a tax write-off. So hopefully I can find the receipts, and then there'll be tax write-offs. I know I'll be able to find a decent amount of them because a lot of them, you know, are YouTube receipts, you know, that I got digitally. So a lot of them just came through now. But some of them that happened almost a year ago when we started this channel because we had big plans then and then they never came to fruition, but we kept the stuff. I'll have to get the tax receipts for those. But with that, thank you so much for the support. And you are correct. Tax season is around the corner, and I've got to make sure to be ready for that and hopefully get those sweet, sweet write-offs. And also, I think Prigozhin is probably one of Putin's biggest political enemies right now. He seems to be making a name for himself and also almost standing in direct opposition and pointing out the government's incompetence, maybe to try and make it seem that he could do a bit of a better job, although the Wagner group is getting treated like absolute garbage right now. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $200 super chat from Enforcer for President. A crazy amount of support, and thank you very much for that. Enforcer President gives us a recipe. If you have Tropical Smoothie Cafe on DoorDash, you must try acai berry boost, pomegranate blueberry acai, and strawberry. I substituted the banana for the kiwi. Great for your throats. Please give it a try, and healthy food as well. You got to take care of President and Vice President. And thank you very much. That sounds very good. I'm not sure what a Kai is, but it sounds good.
And thank you so much for the support, Enforcer President. I've never had that either. I've never tried that. And if we do have it on DoorDash, we will make sure to give it a shot and give it a nice little drink, a sippy. And of course, very interesting ingredients. They sound very exquisite, Matthew. Pomegranate, blueberry, strawberry. I substitute the banana for a kiwi. It sounds good. I mean, it sounds really good. We'll have to give that a shot. I don't know.
Sounds delicious.
I don't know if we have Tropical Smoothie Cafe here, though, in Alabama. But I will make sure to take a look around and see if we do have one and give it a shot. And you said it's great for the throats, which is also very important as well. We always want to make sure that our throats are in top-notch shape. But nowadays, I feel like staying well-rested is the top-notch thing that I need to try and figure out how to do, because I've had what seems to be no free time. So with that, we will make sure to give it a shot, though. And thank you so much once again for the support, Enforcer for President, having a super cool name, helping this channel to keep on running, and also giving us some suggestions to make sure to take care of the president and the vice president. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling, because that support is massive and absolutely blew me away how you not only supported us massively last night, but this night as well, and are really helping this channel to keep on running. And so thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from Wes A, who says, if Wagner Group gets listed as a terrorist organization, will that allow the U.S. a chance to fight them in Ukraine if an American is killed on Ukraine soil? We do it with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, etc.
We did deem Wagner to be a terrorist organization a little while ago. I believe it was about a day or two ago, and American volunteers can already kill them. They can kill any Russians because they're kind of just doing their own thing, and the U.S. government acts like they can't see them or do anything about them. So in a way, yes, they can do that now, and now that they've been declared a terrorist organization, they certainly can, without really any questions at all being asked about it. Another thing, like kind of with the ISIS Al-Qaeda thing, I don't really know how to equate that. For some reason, my brain and its synapses are not really firing well enough for me to answer that good. So I hope I've answered that well enough at the moment. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, Wes, you have been around for ages. I think you've been around ever since day 4 or a little earlier, and I got to thank you so much for being here for so long, watching this channel, and of course supporting us so that we can keep this thing running 333 days into the war. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for support, and I hope we addressed that fairly well.
And also, thank you to Tim Farrell, Justin Coleman, Super Action General, Ted B, and also Nicholas Ristano. For subscribing to my channel. I just got like a ding, 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 like crazy amount of notifications just done. And thank you to everyone else who is also subscribing. It looks like I'm currently up to 984, so getting very close to 1,000. That's crazy. But up next, we have a $5 super chat from North Sea USA, who says, Slava Ukraine and keep up the good work, enforcers.
And thank you so much for the support to this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And also, Slava Ukraini. The compliments mean a lot to us. And of course, it's not just the super chats and their support that help us to keep this thing running. Of course, very important. It's also people just saying that they enjoy this channel and and would want it to keep running. That helps us out a lot too, because it makes this worthwhile. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and encouraging us to keep this thing running, because we will.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Margaret Hemsley, who says, for the whatever you want account, can't think of any smart questions to stump you, so get one from the live chat, please.
And thank you so much for the support, Margaret Hemsley. And sadly, you don't have anything good to say. Nothing at all. That sounded like I was roasting you. But I do thank you so much once again. And it means a lot to us that you do enjoy this channel and are supporting the Whatever Fund. We will make sure to put it towards whatever. I don't know what it'll be. It'll probably just be the bank account and saving it, so that way I can go through law school. But thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are going to get to that live chat. And what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat goes to Kieran Mooney, who says, I have a question for the enforcer. Ukrainian logistics are still largely a state secret, but do you think they could be using barges on the Dnieper to ship military equipment east?
They might be, although I highly doubt it because it would probably be quicker with the amount of supplies that they could transport by barge to just transport it by train instead. But they may be doing that in some small instances wherever the railroad lines are getting overburdened. They load them onto barges and then ship them elsewhere. So perhaps they may. It is a mode of transportation that could possibly be used, but I don't think it's being used by a large margin. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the question. Sorry. And also, thank you so much for supporting us and sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And also, Margaret Hemsley told me to tell you that I couldn't stump him, and that was a good thing.
Oh, I didn't take it as a bad thing at all. And I don't really, honestly, my brain stopped working here. So thank you though. And with that, on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from HerpDerpNV, who says, it's funny how people never want to publicly admit to eating McDonald's, but they sell like 1 billion burgers a year. Also, look up McDonald's pink slime.
And thank you so much for the support. And that is kind of crazy. I actually don't eat McDonald's. I avoid them with a very strong passion. But let's take a look at the pink, what was it called again?
Pink slime.
Pink slime. The food. Oh, buddy. Oh, that's just like hamburger meat.
That just looks like beef.
See, pink slime, also known as lean, finely textured beef or boneless lean beef trimmings, is a meat byproduct used as food additive to ground beef and beef-based processed meats as a filler or to reduce overall fat content of ground beef. As part of the production process, heat and centrifuges remove the fat from the meat and beef trimmings. The resulting paste without the fat is exposed to ammonia gas or citric acid to kill the bacteria. In 2001, the United States Department of Agriculture approved the product for limited human consumption. The product, when prepared using ammonia gas, is banned for human consumption in the European Union and Canada. So let's see here. Production, early use. Let's see. Oh, I like this part right here. This is stuff I don't like to hear. Let me find it again. Where was it? Oh. Wait, nope. It wasn't there. Let's see the introduction. Something in here just said that it was approved. That the cleaning process was so good with ammonia that it didn't even need inspections from the FDA to do. And that is very questionable whenever there's any kind of food product involved and the FDA goes, hey, we're not going to really look into how that's done anymore. It's like, what the hell are they doing now to that meat that's not being looked at? Because food you can screw up really easily. People don't really believe that because it happens at a somewhat smaller rate, but if you just leave things on their own to run awry in the food industry, it will, specifically in the food processing arena. People will do anything they can to sell food, even if it'll end up harming a consumer. So that is something that is a little concerning to me, because historically, if you ever give anyone a little bit of room in food production to do something to food, they will do it, and it will end up causing some kind of a physical harm to someone later on down the road. That's just dangerous. But let's see here. Industry response, market response, government response.
Also, I got to say real quick, thank y'all for the 1,000 subscribers.
Yay! He made it.
Hit 1,000.
He did it.
Thank you so much. That's a small milestone for me. Now I'm definitely going to make a video coming up very soon. And also, since y'all were so nice to subscribe to my channel that quickly, what would y'all like to see on the channel? Let me know. Would y'all like to see behind the scenes of what we do? Maybe a video about that, or would you like to see something, maybe like gun content like I was doing there on that one video, or maybe some more in-depth videos about like Ukraine or some weapons they use or something like that? Let me know, because I'm going to be taking suggestions, because I'm not really sure which direction I want to take it at this point. So I'm definitely open to anything.
And also, Port Stan was your 1,000 subscribers, so good job on that, man. That's actually pretty cool.
Thanks, man.
But let's see, regulation, public perception. I'm trying to find some specific things about it here, but I can't really, it's so much to read, and I'm not trying to sit here and read the whole thing. Let's see here, dude. 2009 and 2011. it's not saying a lot about how it's used in McDonald's, but I still don't like the idea of cleaning meat with ammonia. That just sounds like a not really great idea. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well about the whole meat thing with McDonald's. And it is kind of funny to think that they do sell 1 billion burgers a year nonetheless. But once again, they're an international brand that literally expands into every corner of the globe. So I guess that's how they kind of do it. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Lazaro Castro, who does not leave a comment, and also a $2 donation from Dupper Bob. So thank you to both of you for the support, and we appreciate it very, very much. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Anthony Bestwick, who says, we've seen so far suicide drones, dropping bomblets, and drones. What we need now is drones with a form of metal storm, fastest gun in world.
And I thank you so much for the support. And also, that would be pretty cool. I think we've seen a drone like that before that had a machine gun mounted onto the bottom of it, but those things would get massive because the weight of a machine gun is incredibly heavy. And I don't know about that exact one, but I'm still fairly certain it would be quite heavy and very difficult for a normal drone to fly around. So it might end up being a very large drone that gets used for that purpose. But still, that would be a pretty cool idea, Anthony, to see one of those things around on the front lines. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Dustin Little, who does not leave a comment. But Dustin, thank you very much for the support, and we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the $5 super chat, Dustin Little. You didn't throw in a comment or anything, but the support does mean a lot and helps us to keep this channel running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the support fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Sausage, Gravy, and Biscuit, who says another %30 for YT Sensors, Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. That is true. 30% of everyone's super chat goes to YouTube. So if you send in $3, they'll take $1 of it automatically. And then they also deduct sales tax, VAT tax, and anything else they can. So we really end up in reality getting about like 65% of a super chat. So, but still, it's better than nothing, and also it ensures that y'all don't get scammed. And so even if we have to take a hit, to make sure y'all don't get scammed by some fake account that says they're me and they're in my comment section, I can't find them in time, I just find that to be better. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, let's see. I'm not sure what that means exactly. I'm going to copy and paste it to you.
All right, and I'll make sure to take a look at it. Let's see here. Let me go find it. And I'm sorry, everyone, if I sound like I'm low energy. I am. I'm hardly running over here. I don't know what that means.
I don't either. I'm feeling like maybe somebody's trying to had me or get me had again.
I think that is maybe trying to have you. So I thank you for the support. We can't really address that, but with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Anthony Bestwick, who comes in low. He says, gun reviews on real gun and not toys. Well, Anthony is still on it again. Anthony, I'm actually, well, I'm not going to be, well, that's separate. That's separate. I'm actually going to be shooting the thing sometime soon. So there will be a video coming out about that in the future on my channel. But then you'll see it is real. But thank you for the support. And up next, we have a $2 donation from Philip Fixes, who says, look up Newsweek Russian robots. It's outlandish.
Newsweek Russian robots. I think I've seen that thing before. It's the guy in the suit. Newsweek Russian robots. Let's see here. Marker combat robots. What the hell's that? Dentures. All right. These things? I wouldn't count on them to do much. They don't look like they're anything special or good, but who knows? But with that, I thank you for the support. I thank you for showing those things to us because I didn't know they existed, and they don't really look to be that good, just from just taking a quick glance at them. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $1.24 super chat from Uber Khan, who does not leave a comment. But Uber, thank you very much for the support, very much, and we appreciate it all the time. And that actually is our last super chat. So with that being said, we're moving on to our live chat questions, and we actually have already told the Morse. All right, so we've told the Morse already, so that threw me off a little bit. But anyways, moving on to our first live chat question, we have one from Rufus Irvin, who says, Enforcer, anyone know what the Russian mafia is up to during the war? Would imagine they have more people than the Wagners.
I really wouldn't know what they're up to during the war. We don't really get a lot of news on the Russian criminal underworld, especially right now. So unfortunately, I would have to declare ignorance on that question because there's not really a lot for me to work off of and information that I know of. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a live chat question from Tony Snedkor, who says, do you think destroying every supply line all the way back to Russia should be the #1 focus of Ukraine?
Yes, that should always be a #1 focus, is destroying and interdicting supply lines, because supply lines are the way nations fight wars and the only way that the fighting men have ammo to keep going. And so if you can cut those supply lines, the fighting men are no longer fighting men, they're just sitting ducks, ready to be shot or ready to surrender. So I would say that definitely should be one of Ukraine's top priorities. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from... Also, I've already said, hey, Matt, I left you a brief not on your channel. What is that? How do you interpret that?
I think
my brain's not working on that one.
I think he left you like a brief statement or something for you somewhere, but not on your channel.
Or it could mean they left briefly from this channel and now they're back. I'm not sure. My brain's not ticking on that one. For some reason, it's throwing me for a loop.
I don't know. But with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to F. Mertz, who says, what do you think would be more effective for Ukraine, the 170-kilometer rockets for $40,000 apiece, or a $5 million tank?
Probably the missiles would be more effective. Well, no, I take that back. I would say a single $5 million tank would probably be more effective for them, because the missiles are striking deep into Russia, but they already have Tu-141s that can do that job, and we've seen them do it before. So it'd probably be better for them to get better tank abilities on the front lines. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, also, Mark Hodges, I see solved the Morse. We've actually already read it off, but I went ahead and put your name anyway because I knew you'd show up. So you did get credit. But let's see. We have a super chat now from Rocco World Domination, who puts in a $7 donation and says, Wendy's used to be king for me, but then I went on a trip to the States and discovered Culver's, and now they have topped it for me. Igor and Slava Ukraine.
And also Slava Ukraini and Igor. And also Culver's is really good. It's just that you have to have like an appetite for Culver's or Wendy's. It's kind of just depending on what kind of style of burger you want. The thing that I kind of don't like much about Culver's burgers is that they usually don't come with a lot of condiments on them. You really have to like spell out the exact condiments you want. On the Wendy's menu, you can just order a pre-made burger that comes with a whole bunch of condiments that are really good on it. But still, when you get those condiments on a Culver's burger, they are really good. I won't lie. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Rocco World Domination, and I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Dark Warrior 137, who said, what's stopping Ukraine from targeting the Wagner leader, and would killing him and a few of his generals open the path to safely targeting Putin?
It probably would actually strengthen Putin's control in Russia if Prigozhin was killed, so we may want to keep him alive so that way he'll continue to sow the seeds of political dissent inside of Russia. If the Ukrainians wanted to kill him, I'm sure that there is a way. It's just it'll be fairly difficult to, considering they haven't been able to kill Putin either. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, at least based off of what I'm thinking of right now. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have another super chat, this time from Smog, who puts in a $10 donation and says, Enforcer, we have over 1,000 effective M1064 mortar carrier systems in inventory. I wonder why we are not sending these to Ukraine. We've sent M113s and mortars. Why not send the assembled systems?
We have seen a couple of those, actually. We have seen them on video. Well, actually, I'm sorry. They're Panzermörsers from Germany, which are the same thing. But I'll pull them up real quick. Panzermörser. Right here. They're these. These are models, but it's the same thing. The Germans have sent some. I don't know why we haven't sent any. That's a great question. And I think that we should definitely start looking through those stockpiles and inventories to see if we can send some and if any are operational. Because, one, they have a lot of mortar ammunition, and two, it would probably be good to have a very mobile mortar system, because mortars are also a deciding factor of the battles going on right now. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, Smog. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we're back to the live chat questions, and this one goes to Plexus Gaming, who says, when do you think Russia will call for more mobilization to bolster their troops to 1.5 million?
Russia will most likely call for a partial mobilization again here by February, I'm assuming. If they haven't called it by then, they might not call it, and they might be seeing about trying to round out this war one way or another, because they are running out of men for sure. And so with that, I hope that does address the live chat fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Hardwater Channel, who says, Enforcer, I think Germany is playing the middle in order to talk the Russians down. What are your thoughts? In Slava LSA?
I don't think they're trying to play the middle. I think they're trying to play a really soft position, or a really scared position, because they don't really want to do or send tanks to Ukraine. I think they may be scared of their past and turning into that, or being viewed as that again, and that may be the reason why. But once again, I'm not really all too sure. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have, looks like, 2 more super chats. The first one goes to Anthony Bestwick, who puts in a £5 donation and says, don't worry, Matt. That was my last Toy Joe, as I'm heading to end-of-life care home soon and won't be watching you live, but please look at Metal Storm. Goodness, Anthony, I got to say that is bad to hear, and I'm sorry to hear that. I'll be totally honest, I'm not really sure exactly, like, is that like a nursing home or something? Hopefully I don't sound ignorant on that, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I was, when you said that, I actually got really sad feeling. I was like, oh, dang. I was like, hopefully you're not dying or anything. If you are, that's tragic, really. I mean, that if you are, that's making me feel terrible. But let's go look at the Metal Storm. So, the Metal Storm game?
I guess so.
Let's see here. Metal Storm. Metal Storm is a international, so this is like a heavy metal thing. Let's see, what else do we have? Metal Storm game. Let's go look at the game. Let's see here. And also, man, they had to get rid of a bot. Unfortunate. Metal Storm game. Pretty interesting. I don't know if it is the game, but the game does look pretty neat. Apparently based in the year like 2500, so pretty far away. And also it looks like it gets mixed up with Ace Combat, I think, is the game over here, or another game called Metal Storm that's about fighter aircraft. But still, pretty cool looking game. Also, graphics aren't that bad. It kind of looks like one of those modern, like, 8-bit games that people put out, you know, for fun. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Anthony. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I hope you still continue to watch us live. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Marichka once again, who says, Russia is an anachronistic empire, so I'm convinced it will shatter into pieces after they lose the war, and it's good to know that it solves the nukes.
And that is pretty good to know that it does solve the nukes, and hopefully they will fracture after the war. I think it's highly unlikely, but maybe they will. And also, it appears that the Metal Storm is a weapon. It's that box thing right here.
Dang.
You know, it's that thing that can
Oh,
get
yeah, I
like
think
a
I've seen that
million
before on
rounds a minute.
YouTube.
Yeah, at a fire rate of 1,000,000 rounds a minute. That's that thing right here. So that would be kind of wild to put onto the bottom of a drone. I think that thing is probably really heavy because look at how big the tripod is that it has to be carried on. Man, that thing is
Dang.
bolted down into the ground and everything. That thing's probably got bad recoil. But moving back to Anthony's for a second, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And also, getting back to this one, hopefully it will shatter, but I just think it's unlikely. But if it does, it will solve the nuclear situation fairly well because we can just piecemeal disassemble and denuclearize each new part of Russia. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Avari Mandubratis, who says, Enforcer, what munitions in Ukraine's inventory are most effective against minefields when you have to blow them up in a hurry, and what is better they don't have?
Can you reread that one again real quick?
Avari says, what munitions in Ukraine's inventory are most effective against minefields when you have to blow them up in a hurry, and what is better that they don't have?
The best thing they have to blow up minefields is the meteorite. Both sides have a meteorite. Well, some meteorites. Not a meteorite, a meteorite. Right here, the UR-77. This little thing right here is an MTLB mine clearing vehicle. So these are the best things they have. If they need to clear one in a hurry, it can clear out a massive strip that forces can move through. So that would be the best. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And it looks like we have one more super chat. This one is from Homer Lapguard, who puts in a $2 donation, and he puts in a super sticker that says, hey you, with the pair jumping around wearing sunglasses. So thank you very much, Homer, for that, and we appreciate that support very much. And let's see here, just making sure I didn't miss anything. Looks like everybody's saying that Metal Storm is a weapon and stuff. And it looks like we're good with that. So, with that being said, we're back to the live chat questions. And up next, we have one from Aaron Walters, who says, did you see Russia is trying an offensive in Zaporizhia?
I didn't hear that. I heard that maybe the Ukrainians trying to conduct an offensive in Zaporizhia, but we do see massive troop buildups on both sides there. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Anthony Bestwick once again, who says, stage 4 cancer, it sucks at 52. And Anthony, I gotta say, that's very sad to hear, man. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, that's pretty rough, and I gotta thank you for the support, and that's terrible to hear, man. But I hope you keep watching. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one we have is from Book Bandit, who says, "What have you got to say about General Milley's comments?" And
which ones?
There's not much to say about those, rather than they're usually misinformed.
Usually is an understatement. They are almost most of the time misinformed. But with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Matthew Alder, who says, have you heard about the ship that Ukraine is buying from Turkey?
I did, actually. I heard that they're actually building a fleet of several of those. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And currently, that one is being held in Turkey until the end of the war, so that way it doesn't get sunk in transit. And also, we will be carrying on with the question segment until 12:15 local time, or 1:15 Eastern time, because I am hardly mentally here right now. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from CME4PC, who says, Blackhawks versus Sea Kings. There's a Navy version of the Blackhawk. Is it the same, question mark?
I think it is a little different. Let me go find out, though. Navy Blackhawk. It's the Seahawk, but they're almost the same. You can see right here, they're very similar looking. I don't really know what the difference is. It may be the rear landing gear. But but largely the same helicopter, just a slightly different variant for the Navy. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for asking a pretty interesting one there. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Activista, who says, did you see the clip of the Russian propaganda chick getting merrily shouted down at Davis?
No, I didn't. So unfortunately, I have to declare ignorance on that one, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jillian, who says, did you hear and see about the Russian ship around the Sea of Hawaii?
We did. We've actually talked about that one a little bit last night and tonight, thanks to Walter A. Lakota's super chat that asked about it. But we did hear about it a little bit. It's just that we didn't cover it much. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one we have is from Buddy, who says, what is the best Russian anti-tank system? Is it the Kornet, Chrysanthema, Metis, or Olaf Scholz?
Probably in all seriousness, I would say it would be the Chrysanthema. It's probably one of their best anti-tank systems. But Schultz needs to get on with those Leopards, man. He's got to get them to Ukraine sometime soon. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Plexus Gaming once again, who says, I've heard that Ukraine is planning on attacking Belarus. Was this just clickbait, or was there some truth to it?
It's clickbait. The Ukrainians are not planning on attacking Belarus anytime soon because that just soaks up resources and efforts that they could be using to defend against the Russians in the southeast with instead. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Richard Rody, who says, another Pantsir S-1 was put on top of a ministry building in Moscow today. Could those be more for protection from a civil uprising in Russia than a Ukrainian threat?
It may be for both. They may be seeing that both of those threats are rising at just about the same time and the same speed, and so they're trying to prepare for both of them. It may be the case, but it also may be the case that it's just the Ukrainian threat or the threat of civil unrest in either direction, and just each one solely on their own, but we're not really sure. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, it looks like we got one more super chat, this time from Dubsy Dapster, who put in a $2 donation. And Dubsy, thank you very much. As always, very consistent support, and we appreciate it very much. While I'm like stumbling over my words over here. But anyways, up next we have a live chat question from Ted B, who says, what constitutes a battery?
A battery, in old terms, used
Are we
to be...
talking about AA or AAA?
Yeah, battery in old terms used to mean a group of 4 artillery pieces. I think in the modern world, a battery is largely the same size. I think it may have gone up to 6, but it's somewhere in that arena. But once again, I could be wrong because a battery could be relative to the system being used. A battery could be all the way up till 12, all the way up to 12. It could be as little as 2. But it is going to be more than 1. We can guarantee that. And so with that, I hope that answers that question at least the best I can. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right. And given that I don't see any other questions in the live chat here, it looks like this might be the last question of the night because it's the last one I have in the spreadsheet. So would you like to do the whole spill?
All right. So who's the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Tasman006, who says, do you think one of the most important things for Ukraine to take would be the dam at Kakhovka so the Russians won't flood further upstream if Ukraine is successfully crossing?
The Ukrainians have already secured the Novokakhovka Dam. The Russians have withdrawn from the town, from what we know. Let me go check to make sure I'm correct on that. Up till today, you see right here, the Ukrainians control one side of the dam, the Russians control the other side. So they don't have to control the entire thing. As long as they control half of the dam like they do right now, the Russians can't mine it and blow it up successfully. So that threat has largely disappeared. And we know the Russians most likely won't do that because there's no way they can excuse that through PR, and that would also cause a nuclear meltdown at Zaporizhzhia because they would run out of water to cool the reactors with. Even if they get shut down, they still need water being pumped through them. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. Great question, though, Tasman006. We haven't had one about the Novokakhovka Dam in a long time, probably like 3 months. But with that, it is the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I thank you all so much once again for enjoying tonight's question segment. If you are new to this channel, please make sure to subscribe and also hit the like button, as this stream runs every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, covering the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, everyone have a great night, stay safe, take care, good luck, and I'll see you all around tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine and to also run the Sunday night fundraiser. And also best of luck to Anthony Bestwick as well. And so with that, good night and take care.
Есть.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу.